right.
It's only done it once for me.
It does it every 3 seconds.
Yeah, I'm getting it too.
We are streaming though, so
Everybody gets to hear our woes.
oh, they use Linux. They know all about our woes.
Yeah, I'm getting that too.
The struggle is real.
Hopefully, we got video streaming.
The reality is struggling.
Yeah.
Somebody will want to look at the stream, make sure we're getting video. Because
I'm bringing it up now.
Yeah, it's good. I see it. All right, now I can go back to this problem. Oh my! Felt that in the middle of my head.
I'm sorry.
You're fine, Moss.
The boundaries of insanity. My BBS I ran for like 6-7 years back in the 90s. It was called The Edge of Insanity.
Oh, okay.
So whenever I see insanity, it has a special part or a special place in my heart.
Well, here I'll shorten it.
Boundaries of sanity.
And it says I can't save it. What is going on with the permissions, Bill?
I'm looking at the dashboard and the permissions are all right. Let me look at the administrative settings. I think I'm going to do a quick reboot on the... There's 50 errors. Oh, crap. What do we got going on here? Logging. Error. Rich documents. mintCast new... Blah, blah, blah. It's locked.
The false gods are angered.
Existing lock on file 2. Shared locks. Uh-huh. Okay. What do I do about it?
So what do we say about Dale and Wanderings?
Oh, you ain't got your wanderings in, Dale?
No. Then in our wanderings, Bill is broken down. Joe goes virtual. Moss has stopped watching.
Oh.
Majid is in India and will be back next month. And Dale, ...
Dale's sitting there. Oh, crap.
I thought I did that in the top one. I guess we do a different one for down there. Oh, for the wander. Oh, a summation of her wanderings
in the upper part.
I'm gonna.
Oh man, this is bad, Bill.
I'm gonna restart the server.
Or whoever is good at summations.
Should we log out?
No. Just don't do anything.
I don't know how to surmise this.
Oh.
Let's see. Oh, if he's going to reboot, we're going to be able to edit it anyway.
Yeah.
It won't even open up in... I'm about to copy and paste it onto LibreOffice and just be done with it.
Damn. Can't do nothing now. Oh, I can go up and down on the script. That's something.
I hope Joe's talking to somebody else because I can't.
Joe goes virtual. Moss has stopped watching.
For those of you watching the live stream.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, finally. Sure that Tenacity can still hear me. All right. Tenacity can still hear me.
You've got one hell of a noise gate going on there.
I'm not hearing noise, but I'm definitely hearing softer than usual.
Well, that's why I said noise gate. He's got
You have a noise gate on.
Oh.
You don't need a gate. Just a noise suppression is usually good enough. The gate is mostly when you're in a...
No effects added. Oh. So then you switch
to your input, not your output.
Effects. I have noise reduction. And that's it. The only thing I have is noise reduction.
All right. You're fine then. It is
I can bump my volume.
Let me see. Give me some more.
Hold
I
on.
mean,
I had closed it out because everything was working.
No, you're fine. You're in the amber. I wouldn't want to start clipping or anything. All right.
Test. Yeah. All right.
Let's see if we can get our damn document to work.
I know what to type.
Test. Test. Eh.
Flunk.
Test. Yeah, I do flunk. Test. Test. Test.
Okay, it stopped.
Test. What stopped? Can't hear me no more?
Getting that error. Oh, thank God.
Okay. As long as you can still hear me.
It's a little cracked up.
You can still hear me. Cracked up? Is it cracked?
Just a tiny bit. Not at the moment, but it was a second ago.
How's that for a summation?
Did Eric say he was sick or just busy?
Not feeling well.
Not feeling well.
Oh, there it's doing it again. God.
I didn't change anything.
Document cannot be saved. Please check.
Did my edit save?
I do not see your edit.
My edit saved.
I see it.
I don't see the edit.
And now it came up again.
I'm just going to use LibreOffice. Be done with it because this ain't working out.
Loading 444 shownotes.odt. Nextcloud Office connecting. Everything is highlighted by someone.
Oh, lovely.
But nothing shows up. There we go. Okay, yeah. Some of the changes I made aren't there.
Oh boy. Well, it's taking my changes.
Well, I'm seeing Joe actively type.
Yep, I'm seeing Joe actively type.
I had typed that exact sentence before, but
I know, I remember seeing it.
But it didn't save from before. Now I'm getting the error message again. That highlight is because Bill is grabbing the text to paste it to the whatever.
Yeah. Here, I'll turn that off. Or I'll try. It's not... Well, I've got it on LibreOffice. But
language! Oh, you didn't say it. You almost said it.
Yeah, I caught myself.
I thought we were speaking English, Joe.
Show notes.
We almost needed the explicit tag.
Guys, I did make a change in the header as I kind of put down there a little bit highlighted. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussions, we put that at the end of the header instead of the beginning. It flows a lot better there.
Yeah. The please remember if you... Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'll take out my highlight then.
Yes, we don't read it.
And it says it's saved.
Yeah, I see it. I saw you actively do it, and it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, then I guess we're about ready to go. Audacity is ready. I seem to be getting, maybe to 12. I don't want to turn up my volume anymore. It's almost all the way at the top now.
Test.
Yeah, 125% plus all turned all the way up.
Yeah.
I better turn that down a little bit. All right.
Yeah, but you sit back in your chair a lot, though.
Because okay. So I have another problem now.
Fun.
But My Tenacity is evidently picking up a different microphone from what Video Ninja is, because my mute's not working.
You want both of them set to pick up the default. That way they're just...
Well, if I could set that, I would. It's giving me two choices: my HD webcam or Pulse.
In your
I set it to
interface,
Pulse. I set it to Pulse. Go ahead.
in the interface setting, it says host. What do you have? Like mine, I have ALSA and Jack Audio Connection Kit.
I have also.
Yeah.
That's the only one you have?
That's
Okay.
it.
Are you specifically selecting it? Because I specifically select Scarlett Solo 3rd Gen Input 1
It's-
mic.
It's
Are you
the only
using-
choice I have.
You're using a flat pack, aren't you? It might not be completely exposed.
Me?
You. Yeah.
No.
How are you?
Using
How are
the
you
app
using?
image.
Oh.
Hold on. I will close it out and reopen,
I'm using the flat pack.
because I have the flat pack and the app image. So
Boy, all the fixes to this problem with the document.
well, I'm glad I caught that.
Oh, you fixed it?
No, I'm glad I caught it.
Now you're breaking up.
Oh, you're breaking up with
Turn
me?
on. Yeah, turn off that simple effects. It's just fraught with problems.
All right.
Breaking up is easy to do.
Yeah, if you're the one doing the breaking up.
I'm just
Oh.
saying, Neil Sedaka was wrong.
I gotta see if it's just that document.
Quit. Okay, so can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Do I sound okay? Is it
You
this?
sound
sound
good.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Click to start monitoring.
Clearly,
Test.
it's just something wrong with that one document
All right.
Huh.
So
with 444.
And it just jumped on me.
Oh, that's normal.
Yeah. Hasn't
you hear me
been
now?
normal for a while, Dale.
Oh, really?
can you hear me
Yeah.
now?
I've been able
Yeah,
to edit
yeah.
my heart out, and nobody is screaming at me to leave the document alone, except for when my tag is blocking what they're reading.
I've been
Okay.
trying real hard to not give you any reason to go messing with mine
Thank
while
you.
while I'm reading it.
Well, I've done all the editing I'm going to do,
Oh yeah.
unless someone changes their script.
How was
Okay.
mine?
All right. I'm not gonna mess with it anymore. I'm over it.
All right. I'm done messing with it. I just had that pop up that I can't make any changes.
So keep in mind what I'm looking at here is what we got or what we had before I copied and pasted it. So anything that was changed,
Oh, I'm
I'm
gonna
not
have to
have
open
it.
this elsewhere, because that keeps popping up for me now over and over again.
Yeah, I got it too. It seems like it's just that doc because I opened up 443 and it didn't do it.
I haven't gotten that for a while now.
Me either.
Oh, this is gonna be a fun show. You can tell already.
Oh, yeah. Considering it's 22 minutes late already. It's not going to
the
be a
first
short
time.
show.
It's not the first time we've started late.
Oh, we've been later than that. We've been
Oh, yeah.
almost 4 o'clock before.
Yeah.
Not on my watch. Oh, now I get it popped up saying cannot be saved. I didn't see anyone trying to save it.
I wasn't trying to do anything.
No, everybody's browser will save it automatically periodically.
Oh,
That's just how it works.
Okay, well, why don't we get going?
Because I have no way to see the show notes.
Oh,
Copy paste.
what's interesting is I only see me and Moss as signed in, and Joe just signed in.
That's
see
because I
Joe
signed
Dale
out.
and me, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I signed out because what's the point? But I got the local there. Oh, I didn't have to go through all that trouble. Hang on a minute here. I
Yeah.
could just open it from the local file saved here on my machine, backed up with the backup. Ooh, except I don't have that running on.
Open
Huh.
off LibreOffice.
Next
Well,
one.
I'm not going to try and copy and paste over to SoftMaker.
Why not? Should work.
You never know.
Nothing.
OpenOffice has weird formatting. LibreOffice has weird formatting compared to the rest of the Office packages.
The rest of the closed source proprietary offerings.
Well, hey, what can I say? ODF and ODT are completely different things from. They just try to emulate the W, whatever it is.
The far superior Microsoft Word.
I'm not saying that.
If you guys
if it
make
was far
changes,
superior, I'd be using Microsoft.
if you guys make changes, I'm not going to see them.
And that's a good thing. Right?
Well, I wish my screen wasn't all highlighted like this, Bill.
All right.
I didn't do that. That was Joe.
Who's hosting today?
You.
Me? All right.
You say it's still highlighted?
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to unhighlight it, Joe. Did you highlight it and then close it?
I bet that's what. There it went. Okay. We're good.
Oh, my. Oh, we got respawns in the respawns following closely with all of our woes. We should just start using they'll know when we all start using Windows because we'll just start right on time and there won't be no problems.
Never happened. We start using Windows, I'm out of here.
Right.
We'll just not say anything. We'll just use Windows, talk about Linux. Isn't this Linux thing great?
It would be all.
You mean pull a Leo?
It's like Windows virtual machines.
There, yeah.
That's what Bill's next task is, to create his own cloud hosting service for VMs, and then we can all use his server to run.
You can already use it if you need to.
What Windows
Well,
VMs?
yeah, but you didn't write the software yet, Bill.
Oh, well, I mean that's the point behind Nextcloud is it's there. If you needed more space, I can give it to you. I can crank it up.
Anyhow, Audacity people.
Oh, Audacity? You want to use that? Okay.
What's that then?
Tenacity.
I don't care. If everyone ready, we can do some countdowns.
Audio editing software.
Audio recording and editing software.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, record. Okay, 25 seconds. Zeros. 3, 2, 1, 0.
Zero.
Sounded good. My job here is done. Carry on, Joe.
Gotta find my radio voice. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 444. This is episode 444.5. Recorded on Sunday, August 18th, 2024. Having a rough week, I'm Joe.
Stretching the boundaries of sanity, I'm Moss.
There's no place like home. I'm Bill.
Coming in clutch, I'm Dale.
First up, in the news, Canonical moves to shipping very latest upstream kernel code. Google Search is playing Monopoly. WordStar 7 is open source. SUSE goes way long. Chrome blocks uBlock. GitLab is on the market. And Fun2 is back, sort of. In security and privacy, hackers leak 2.7 billion data records with social security numbers. And there are lots of zeros attacking Mac and Linux browsers. Then in our wanderings, Bill is broken down, Joe goes virtual, Moss has stopped watching, Majid is in India and will be back next month, Eric isn't feeling well, and Dale joins us with his head in the next clouds. In our innards section, home networking, tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts. And finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussion, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description with helpful images. First up in the news, can you guys pick yours and I'll just read this one while you're doing that? Canonical moves to shipping very latest upstream kernel code for Ubuntu releases. This is from Michael Larabelle at Phoronix via Londoner. Following decisions like exploring O3 package builds for Ubuntu Linux, another newly announced change by Canonical that must be applauded is their decision to commit to shipping the very latest upstream kernel code at release time. Ubuntu, up to now, for each release, has shipped with the latest upstream kernel release as of kernel freeze time. But in some cases, this means even shipping with a 2-month-old kernel version, even if a new upstream Linux kernel release is near and will be stable ahead of the next unplanned Ubuntu Linux release. So now there's a shift in course by Canonical's kernel team for Ubuntu to accommodate that difference, so the Ubuntu Linux release will be shipping with the very latest upstream kernel at release time. This is great and the right move, though it stops short of Ubuntu Linux shifting to a policy like new kernel versions coming down as stable release updates over the lifetime of Ubuntu releases. Seems a little bit of an opinion, but okay. Today's kernel version selection announcement sums it up as current policy. The way the CKT has historically chosen an upstream Linux kernel version was with a conservative weight.
Well, that's all very
Now?
unfortunate.
What happened? I did nothing. And now I can't hear you. I can still be heard over here. Why can't I be heard?
We can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Well,
Yeah.
you don't really need to see me, I guess.
Now I can't hear Moss.
I can't hear Moss either.
It would help if my microphone was on.
Okay, but you just can't see me no more.
Nope,
No.
can't see you no more. We heard you right up to wait and see, except we only heard wait.
Hold on. Okay. The way the CKT has historically chosen an upstream Linux kernel version was... No, don't change my webcam.
Well, that was me because I'm trying to fix your problem.
The way the CKT has historically chosen an upstream Linux kernel version was with a conservative wait-and-see approach. Given the month-long stabilization window required, an upstream kernel version, all but certain to be released, would be the tentative selection, with a possible last-minute jump to a more recent version should it turn out to release in a workable time frame. This approach would guarantee stability on the appointed release day, but was proving unpopular with consumers looking to adopt the latest features and hardware support, as well as silicone vendors looking for a firmer version commitment to align their Ubuntu support. The new policy, the intent behind this post is to describe a new policy that CKT, is taking in regards to kernel version selection for an upcoming Ubuntu release, to provide users with the absolute latest in features and hardware support. Ubuntu will now ship the absolute latest available version of the upstream Linux kernel at the specified Ubuntu release freeze date, even if upstream is still in release candidate status. This is a nice improvement to see by Canonical for ensuring the freshest upstream kernel version is shipped as of the Ubuntu release time. In turn, this means for the upcoming Ubuntu 24.10 release, it should solidly be the Linux 6.11 kernel. It would still be nice if Ubuntu would commit resources to allow shipping new upstream kernel versions down as stable release updates. But that is a battle for another day. Yeah, for stability, I don't know if it's best to be always pushing out the latest kernel version.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can even test the kernels with the new products if they're not even final release status yet.
I have no way of picking articles because I have no way of putting my name on the notes. So,
Why don't you do the next one, Bill? I've got mine picked already.
all right. Google's online search monopoly is illegal. U.S. judge rules. And this is from the BBC. A U.S. judge has ruled Google acted illegally to crush its competition and maintain a monopoly on online search and related advertising. The landmark decision on Monday is a major blow to Alphabet, Google's parent company, and could reshape how technology giants do business. Google was sued by the U.S. Department of Justice in 2020 over its control of about 90% of the online search market. It is one of several lawsuits that have been filed against the big tech companies as U.S. antitrust authorities attempt to strengthen competition in the industry. This case has at times been described as posing an existential threat to Google and its owner given its dominance of the search and online advertising business. It is unclear yet what penalties Google and Alphabet will face as a result of the decision. The fines of other remedies will be decided in a future hearing. The government has asked for structural relief, quote, which could, in theory, at least mean the breakup of the company. In his decision, U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta, there's no such thing as easy names anymore, said Google had paid billions to ensure it is the default search engine on smartphones and browsers. Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly, the judge wrote in his 277-page opinion. Alphabet said it plans to appeal against the ruling. This decision recognizes that Google offers the best search engine, but concludes that we shouldn't be allowed to make it easily available, the statement from the company said. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, the country's top prosecutor, hailed the ruling as a historic win for the American people. No company, no matter how large or influential, is above the law, Mr. Garland said in a statement Monday. The Justice Department will continue to vigorously enforce our antitrust laws. Federal antitrust regulators have filed other pending lawsuits against big tech companies, including Meta Platforms, which owns Facebook, Amazon.com, and Apple Incorporated. Say what? Accusing them of operating unlawful monopolies.
Including Meta Platforms, which owns Facebook, Amazon.com, and Apple Inc.
Okay, I didn't know that, but okay.
Meta does not own Amazon. They're saying they filed against big tech companies, including Meta, Amazon, and Apple, and they had to state that that Meta owned Facebook.
Okay, well, it's written which owns Facebook, comma, Amazon.com, comma, and Apple.
Should have been a hyphen, but we can fight with them later.
Monday's ruling comes after, yes, Dad. Monday's ruling comes after a 10-week trial in Washington, D.C., in which prosecutors accused Google of spending billions of dollars annually to Apple, Samsung, Mozilla, and others to be pre-installed as the default search engine across platforms. The U.S. said Google typically pays more than $10 billion or 7.8 billion pounds a year for that privilege, securing its access to a steady stream of user data that help maintain its hold on the market. Doing so, prosecutors said, meant other companies have not had the opportunity or resources to meaningfully compete. The best testimony for the importance of defaults, is Google's checkbook, argued Department of Justice lawyer Kenneth Dintzer, I apologize, during the trial. Google's search engine is a big revenue generator for the company, bringing in billions of dollars thanks in large part to advertising displayed on its results pages. Google's lawyers defended the company by saying that users are attracted to their search engine because they find it useful and that Google is investing to make it better for consumers. Google is winning because it's better, said Google's lawyer John Schmiddleton during closing arguments earlier this year. Mr. Schmiddleton also argued. Huh? Schmidtline. I apologize again. Argued during the trial that Google still faces intense competition, not just from general search engine firms such as Microsoft's Bing, but more specialized sites and apps that people use to find restaurants, airline flights, and more. In his ruling, Judge Mehta concluded that being the default search engine is extremely valuable real estate for Google. Even if a new entrant were positioned from a quality standpoint to bid for the default when an agreement expires, such a firm could compete only if it were prepared to pay partners upwards of billions of dollars in revenue share, Judge Mehta wrote. Another case against a technology company over its advertising technology is scheduled to go to trial in September. In Europe, meanwhile, Google has been fined billions in monopoly cases. Now, okay, we've always had the option. This is an interesting question. We've always had the option to change the default search provider if you have the skill set to do so. Now, changing this will not change that. People, what is the favorable outcome here? That people will be forced to make a choice?
Most people don't even think to make a choice, and then most people choose the basic default and leave it at that.
Right.
They'll add a pop-up at the beginning, and do you want Google to be your default search provider, or DuckDuckGo, which has a Google backend, or Bing as your search provider?
And they're always going to choose Google because that's what they know. And
some people might choose DuckDuckGo, but in the end, that's still just a Google backend.
Well, the problem is
DuckDuckGo is a Bing backend now.
Yeah,
is it? They switched.
Yeah, the problem. Sorry, Bill.
Oh, I was just one more thing. You can put a Bang G or something like that, the beginning of your search, and then it'll default to a Google backend. But I think by default, I wonder if that's configurable somehow to just make.
Well, the other thing is, it's been quite a while since Google has been the best search engine. It's been getting worse and worse and worse as they try and push sponsored ads at us instead of best responses to our query.
And not only that, ever since Gemini has come along, they've just I don't want to say they've completely left it to the wind, but it's not gotten any better.
But because they're the default, in most browsers, you just start typing at the top in search, it goes to Google,
including Firefox.
Firefox.
The main problem is that Google is a verb. Ask any non-technical person, just the average person you will find at the store, they will say, oh, just Google it. It doesn't matter if they're Binging, if they're Google, if they're DuckDuckGo. They say, even if you want to search for something on YouTube, which is still a Google property, they are still using it as a verb. Oh, just Google it.
The other problem is if they do break up the monopoly, or if they force Google to do something different, Mozilla still is getting 60-something% of their income from Google. And if that income drops, then will that hurt Mozilla? Will it hurt Firefox?
Well, I mean, I don't know, because I don't think Mozilla is actually in court fighting against Google on this. So, you could still have a situation where Mozilla just kindly doesn't do anything about it. Because, I mean, it is, folks, it's easy to change your search provider on your, on Firefox or even Chromium, I think. So if that matters to you, go do it. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I'm not a huge fan of Google. We all know that. But at the same time, if you're gonna do this, let's do it fair, and let's keep our heads firmly planted in reality, because it's like Dale said, Google is a verb, and that is a huge problem in when you're dealing with things that exist in people's headspace, like Google does. We use these words to describe things that we do, and I don't know. I think that cat's out of the bag. So anyway, it's a lot.
Okay.
Well,
Go
there are
on.
many. There's one other thing I just want to point out, and this is somewhat controversial. Us in the FOSS community, is there are people that are questioning what Mozilla is doing with this $500-600 million that they're getting from Google every year, because a lot of people thinking that a lot of it's being pocketed or reinvested into things that are not bettering Firefox as a browser choice. They are more going into other things that people don't really care about. So they might be able to do a lot more with less, because you have to think about it. They are the highest paid, if you want to call it paid, but the highest, I guess I should say funded. They are the highest funded FOSS project. No other project gets $500 million a year.
Not knowing whether to dispute that or not, why don't we move on to the next article? WordStar, the last ever DOS version, is re-released for free from the Register. Before WordPerfect, the most popular word processor was WordStar. Now the last ever DOS version has been bundled and set free by one of his biggest fans. WordStar 7.0D was the last ever DOS release of the classic word processor, and it still has admirers today. A notable enthusiast is Canadian SF writer Robert J. Sawyer, who wrote the book that became the TV series Flash Forward. Thanks to his efforts, you can now try out this pinnacle of pre-Windows PC programs for professional prosmiths. Say that 5 times fast. Sawyer has taken the final release, packaged it up along with some useful tools, including DOS emulators for modern Windows, and shared the result. Now you too can revel in the sheer unbridled power of this powerful app. Sawyer says, "The program has been a big part of my career. Not only did I write all 25 of my novels and almost all of my short stories with it, a few date back to the typewriter era, I also, in my earlier freelance days, wrote hundreds of newspaper and magazine articles with WordStar. The download is 680 megabytes, but as well as the app itself, full documentation, and some tools to help translate WordStar documents to more modern formats, it also includes copies of 2 FOSS tools that will let you run this MS-DOS application on modern Windows, DOSBox-X and VDOS+. Regular Register readers may recognize both from our story on how to run DOS on a 64-bit OS from last year. Sawyer also offers a handy command reference PDF. WordStar has a long and exceptionally involved history, as the wordstar.org fan site used to chronicle. It started out on CP/M, was ported to DOS, multiple incompatible programs of the same name launched, and later still ported to Windows. The last ever release was part of an obscure Office suite. Sawyer is correct. The final DOS version really is the true classic. MicroPro, the company behind WordStar, was repeatedly acquired. At one point, it was part of SoftKey, which was acquired and became the Learning Company, which was bought by Mattel in what Business Week called, quote, the worst acquisition of all time, end quote. As a result, the software business was spun off again and bought by Houghton Mifflin Riverdeep. Sawyer says it was last updated in December 1992, and the company that made it has been defunct for decades. The program is abandonware. While it certainly has been abandoned since the end of the 20th century, the term abandonware isn't a legal one. It's not clear to us who owns the intellectual property. We doubt it's one of the surviving offshoots, today's Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, but it could be another offshoot, Software McKeeve. Either way, it's very unlikely that the owners will care. If the many changes of ownership weren't enough, the program itself had many offshoots. A rewrite in C became the incompatible WordStar 2000 that abandoned the keyboard-centric UI, which was WordStar's hallmark. MicroPro also acquired a Student's Modula 2 product and rebadged it WordStar Express, which Amstrad PC 1512 owners may remember. Amstrad got a license cheaply and bundled it as WordStar 1512. Even WordStar 7 isn't based on the original code. MicroPro bought a rival clone of the program called New Word and made it the official WordStar 4, as still used by George R.R. Martin, which is why the show sucks. No, anyhow, while many folks in the Unix world have VI keystrokes engraved in their muscle memory, those for WordStar are the equivalent for CP/M and MS-DOS users of a certain age. Control S/E/D/X for navigation, Control K, B to mark the start of a block, Control K, K to mark the end, then Control K, C to copy it, or Control K, V to move it, and Control KS to save. The modern Joe text editor still uses them, for instance. It hasn't got all the functionality, but if you don't want to struggle with an emulator to run a DOS app, the Fox clone WordZar comes close and has versions for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. By modern standards, WordStar doesn't do much, but it does everything many writers want. The Reg Foss desk is rather fond of Robert Sawyer's novels, as well as George R.R. Martin's, come to that, but those less given to genre fiction may recognize William F. Buckley Jr. and Ralph Ellison, both keen users.
I'm a huge Joe user. I've been using Joe for probably at least 25 years, longer than I've been using Linux. I used
Written
it.
by Joe Borland.
Yeah, most text editors really do use the WordStar commands, but maybe not all of them.
Yeah, Joe has the option of doing Emacs, WordStar. I think Vim maybe. I can't remember.
Joe Borland guy wrote a lot of stuff. I mean, he wrote a C compiler.
To be clear, I think most of those commands started with VI, and then everybody else kind of emulated that because VI's been around.
Well, in the Windows world, WordStar was the first.
Well, VI has been around since, what, the 70s or before? So, I mean, that's...
I still use it at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was something they wanted, something other than Ed, which was a stream editor. You had to know the line that you were on to edit it because you couldn't see it.
That's not very useful.
Okay, you want me to do this next one?
Oh, I'm a little upset about this. Go ahead.
You or Dale, doesn't matter.
Google is discontinuing the Chromecast line. This is from The Verge. Google is done making Chromecasts. In a post on Tuesday, Google says it's ending production of Chromecast after over a decade of selling the streaming dongles. Even though the Chromecast devices will now be available while supplies last, Google says it will continue to push software and security updates to its newer devices without specifying which ones. The most recent update to the lineup was the Chromecast with Google TV, released in 2022. But now, Google says technology has evolved dramatically since the launch of the original Chromecast in 2013. We invested heavily in embedding Chromecast technology into millions of TV devices, including Android TV. Google writes, "We are taking the next step in evolving how streaming TV devices can add even more capabilities on your smart TV, built on top of the same Chromecast technology. In place of the Chromecast, the company will offer the newly announced $99.99 Google TV streamer, which launches on September 24th. The set-top box comes with some significant spec bumps over the Chromecast with Google TV, such as a processor that's 22% faster, along with Thread and Matter integration. While the Google TV streamer is a major upgrade to the Chromecast and may finally even rival the pricier Apple TV 4K, it's a shame Google is getting rid of its dongle. With a price of just $29.99, the Chromecast with Google TV offers entry-level access to an all-in-one streaming hub."
So let's talk about the real reason they need a more powerful device for their streaming. and that is so that they can put Gemini into it, so it can be another piece of nonsense like everything else that's getting sold right now.
Yeah,
'Cause I've got two of these things, and they just work. Now they're not
yeah.
for everybody, but it's
I can see
one more headstone in the Google graveyard.
oh yeah, absolutely.
I can see where the market share would be devolving on this because, when it came out in 2013, not every TV was a smart TV. But good luck trying to go to the store now and get a TV that's not a smart TV.
Right.
But now the Chromecast is still nice even today because, you take it off the one TV, you put it on another TV. It's your exact same setup. It's super easy to use. But I'm still not disappointed with them getting rid of it, but I'm hoping that they open up the development on it.
Oh,
Like, let
show
you
of
be
hands.
able-
Who thinks that's going to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen, but it should happen.
Yeah, it should.
They should open it up and allow people to do whatever the hell they want with this hardware that is now obsolete, even though it still works just fine, but they're not going to provide software updates for. So let us do it.
Yeah, because if I've got to pay $100 for a device, for a TV streaming device, see, I use a NVIDIA Shield upstairs, and that the 2018 NVIDIA Shield is still the most powerful Android streaming device you can get, and it still receives updates. It still receives OTA updates.
I thought it was done getting updates
Now I get them all
as
the time.
of this year.
I don't know. It hasn't happened yet because I've had to do forced reboots and see really major release numbers increase.
How much did that on-box cost, Bill?
Oh, like $30-$40.
Ah,
Yeah, most of them fall into that category of more money than a Chromecast because it's got an actual user interface that you can click through, whereas a Chromecast really doesn't. There is a model of Chromecast that comes with Google TV, and it's got the Android TV interface and all that, but that is still kind of a slow 32-bit device. This thing that they're talking about making here will be a proper 64-bit, ARM version 8 type device that
So basically, it's going to be a computer that's limited by software.
Limited by software, and they can put their stupid AI or their language models into it. That way they can have their microphone open at all times in your living room. And you know what, folks? Go buy this thing if you want to, but I hear what people say about the Chromecast anyway. I brought this up with my oldest son.
Well,
And he would have been the demographic that I thought the Chromecast would appeal to, where you're on the bus watching something on your phone, and then you get home and you just want to start watching it on the TV, and you don't want to fire it up and go into the app and find the thing you're watching, and then hope to God that it's going to pick up where you left off. Whereas with the Chromecast, you can just stream directly from the phone. There's really no. It's seamless, but apparently that's not as popular of a concept as
well, I heard that there was also a way to use DeX, Samsung DeX with a Chromecast, and use that as your second screen. I think I had read that because I was looking up different devices that could do it, and I think the Chromecast was one of them. I know with the Roku you can, and I think with the Fire Stick, if you do some interesting crap, you can, but I'm pretty sure the Chromecast can. But
see, that would be cool. I've not had a chance to try that. I would like to try that, but I would need one of those little routers like you're going to talk about in my truck. That way I can just connect to the Chromecast and stream right off the phone that way. That would be cool. But then again, I wouldn't need that. If I had the little network in the truck, I could just stream whatever I wanted to watch and skip the middleman.
Well, this is really no different than my Roku. My oldest Roku is in my bedroom, and I'm going to probably take the one that's in my office here and put it in my bedroom because I'm using Spectrum's Zumo thing because they got rid of the television boxes, to watch regular TV, because I've noticed that And I really hadn't noticed it until I started comparing it to my other ones, that it's really getting slow. Like for me to load up the YouTube app on it, it's a good 5-8 seconds now. Where this Zumo, which has got a faster Snapdragon, or my other, because I have a sound bar that's like a year or two old. So I'm thinking that it's the technical debt that Google is looking at, and then I'm not defending them, but I'm thinking it could be their technical debt where their software is exceeding the capabilities of that SoC.
Yeah,
Well,
I would agree with that, except the Chromecast doesn't need to do anything except
right.
Well,
except the stream from the phone. You know, the phone is doing all of the
But yeah,
and,
it's
and
doing all the
spy
heavy
on you.
lifting. Or your desktop. You can make like your Chrome browser that will
that's true. I've
hook up
actually
to
got
your
this thing set up to
Chromecast.
do
Yeah.
that. So
But my concern is, yes, these are tiny devices, but I don't want them to end up as e-waste. Now,
right.
granted, that's still going to happen, but I'd like to put off as much of it as possible for as long as possible because I like making old things still work and be usable. But that's me. I don't want things to go to the junkyard unless they have to.
I completely agree. Moving on. You want this one, Dale, or do you want me to take it?
I'll take it.
Okay.
SUSE upgrades its distros with 19 years of support. No other Linux comes close. And this is from ZDNet. At SUSECon in Berlin, SUSE, a global Linux and cloud native software leader, announced significant enhancements across its entire Linux distribution family. These new capabilities focus on providing faster time to value and reduced operation costs, emphasizing the importance of choice in today's complex IT landscape. SUSE Linux my congestion. SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, some people refer to it as SLES, SLES, 15 Service Pack 6 is at the heart of these upgrades. The update future proofs IT workloads with a new long term service LTS, in other words, pack support core. How long is long term? Would you believe 19 years? This gives SLES the longest term support period in enterprise Linux market. Even Ubuntu, for which Canonical recently extended its LTS to 12 years, doesn't come close. You may ask yourself, why 19 years? SUSE's General Manager of Business Critical Linux, BCL, Rick Spencer explained in an interview that the reason is that on 3/14/08 Greenwich Mean Time, aka the Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. Today, January 19th, 2038, we reach the end of computing time. Well, not really, but Linux and other Unix based operating systems include some versions of macOS reached what is called the epoch. That's when the timekeeping code in the 32-bit Unix-based operating systems reach the end of the seconds it's been counting since the beginning of time, which was 0 GMT on the 1st of January 1970. As far as Linux and Unix systems are concerned, and resets to 0, just like the Y2K bug, that means all unpatched 32-bit operating systems and software will have fits. The Linux kernel itself had the problem fixed in the 2020s with Linux 5.6 kernel, but many other programs haven't dealt with it. Until then, though, If you're still running Sleaze 15 Service Pack 6, you'll be covered. I strongly suggest upgrading before then, but if you want to stick with that distro to the bitter end, in addition, the new Sleaze boasts an updated 6.4 kernel version. It also includes new libraries such as OpenSSL 3.1, ensuring security and compliance with strict regulations. As for security, Sleaze now boasts superior confidential computing support, which encrypts your data not only when it's stored or in transit on the internet, but in memory as well. Sleaze provides this extra level of security on systems using Intel TDX, which is Trusted Domain Extension, and AMD SEV, Secure Encrypted Virtualization processors. This includes remote attestation with the SUSE manager, ensuring end-to-end capabilities for maximum security and compliance. SAP users will also be happy to see Sleaze for SAP Applications 15 Service Pack 6. This release provides SAP customers and partners with a secure and reliable Linux platform for running mission-critical SAP workloads, from the data center to the cloud. It includes access to the latest innovations from Trento, an open source web application that helps system administrators avoid common infrastructure problems with SAP systems that can result in delayed service implementations for unplanned downtime. If you prefer a more lightweight Linux distro for edge computing or smaller servers, SUSE also released SUSE Linux Enterprise Micro 6.0. This immutable, lightweight, and secure open source host operating system is optimized for containerized and virtualized workloads. It simplifies standalone container deployments and provides a stable platform for Kubernetes. That's a hard word to say. Kubernetes deployments. It also includes full disk encryption support to strengthen your data security. SUSE is also building its own platform for AI using its Linux distros called SUSE AI. This is not your usual AI play. Instead of coming up with its own large language model, also known as LLM, and chatbot, SUSE is providing tools companies need to build their own private secure AI programs. For example, if you want to use your own data without worrying about someone looking over your virtual shoulder to create an AI smart troubleshooter for your products, SUSE enables you to build just that. On one side of the main SUSE family is SUSE's latest Linux release, SUSE Liberty Linux Lite. That's a mouthful. This distro is a replacement for CentOS 7, which will still be very popular, will reach the end of its supported life on 30th of June. SUSE's answer is true drop-in replacement. You can literally just change your repositories from CentOS to Liberty Lite and keep operating. And to editorialize that is pretty cool. Moving on. Moreover, Liberty Linux Lite is the first Linux distro built on the Open Enterprise Linux Association, or OpenELA, Linux codebase. In OpenELA, the CIQ, Oracle, and SUSE joined forces to create the Linux codebase for RHEL clones. Regardless of what sleaze you're running, you can use SUSE Manager 5.0 to keep tabs on your servers and Linux instances. Indeed, SUSE Manager supports far more than just the sleaze family. It now supports over 16 different Linux distributions. These include Red Hat Enterprise Linux, referred to as RHEL, RHEL, its numerous clones, Debian, Mint, and Ubuntu Linux. Indeed, you can even use it with Raspberry Pi OS, formerly called Raspbian. So you can manage your Raspberry Pis as well as your Big Iron. SUSE Manager, based on the Salt DevOps system, deliver automated patch and compliance management for any Linux, anywhere, and at any scale. It is containerized for increased resilience, scalability, and portability, and adds remote attestation capabilities for SLIC's 15 Service Pack 6. Get the picture? SUSE remains fully committed to the SLEs. In fact, the company is already working on additional innovations for the next major release of its flagship business critical Linux platform, SLES 16 and SLES for SAP Application 16, coming in 2025. Tomorrow looks bright for both SUSE and Linux. And to editorialize this, SUSE is coming in hot.
Yeah. Don't you think it's a little confusing though, and
Oh yeah,
unnecessarily
that's a lot of marketing speak.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's difficult to judge the community's response to things that the SUSE people do, because you just don't hear a lot of chatter. I mean, people don't sit and have conversations about SUSE the way they do other companies, other distributions. I'm not sure if I understand the reason behind that, other than it's just German or whatever, or what. But I know I'm not crazy about other distributions that are doing this thing where they're constantly renaming their offerings to the point where people just didn't really understand what the difference was to begin with, and now it's even worse. You, instead of just adding to what was already there, you completely renamed everything. I don't know.
And on top of that, the SUSE board has asked OpenSUSE to change their name, so
there's
they're not
that too.
as recognizable.
Yeah.
And that's just one more name for someone to remember in doing all this stuff.
Yeah, brand recognition. It's the same thing that I wouldn't say the same thing, but RHEL, that was the same thing with like a CentOS, because people were thinking more of CentOS as the free version of RHEL when technically it was, but technically it wasn't.
I mean, if it was never supposed to be, then say that in the beginning. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
that got away from them.
Yeah, and I think that the people that make the decisions about the direction these things go are not taking the community's response, or what the community's response may in fact be when they make
Their
these
answer to
decisions.
that is always the community doesn't know what they want.
Yeah. Well, we do, if you ask or if you listen.
The community is always going to be mad no matter what you do.
Right. Yeah. Go ask Reddit. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's SUSE does interesting things from time to time, but then it always seems to get overshadowed by stuff like this. I don't know.
It's like, as the late Steve Jobs said, you're holding it wrong.
All right, moving on. Google is killing one of Chrome's biggest ad blockers, and this is from PC World's Michael Kreider. Most people on the internet use the Chrome browser, and most Americans are using ad blockers. And even though advertising puts food on my table, I can't blame them. And this is Michael Kreider's words. Google, as the world's biggest advertising company, doesn't appreciate that. That's why policy changes in Chrome are going to impact one of the browser's most popular ad blockers. A change in Chrome's extension support from the Manifest version 2 framework 2, the newer version 3, is being billed as a way to make browser add-ons safer, ostensibly, more efficient and compliant with modern APIs, but it's also deprecating features that complex extensions rely upon. One of those extensions is uBlock Origin, an ad blocking tool with over 30 million users across, according to its Chrome Web Store page, and presumably many more across other browsers. uBlock Origin still works as of this writing, but it will soon be automatically disabled by Chrome updates. Users will have to have the option to manually re-enable it for a while, but that will disappear at some point in the near future. When that happens, uBlock Origin fans will need to find a different ad blocker or a different web browser. The maker of uBlock Origin is trying to weather the storm and has already created Manifest version 3 compliant version of the tool called uBlock Origin Lite. This one uses the same core ad blocking features but lacks certain features like dynamic filters for blocking scriptlet injection. UBO Lite is also less capable of getting around anti-ad blocking systems like the infamous Admiral ad blocking blocker. Google has given UBO Lite the featured badge on the Chrome Web Store. uBlock Origin's developer Raymond Hill could simply replace the Chrome Web Store with the new Lite version. Chrome Web Store page with the new Lite version, but according to an explainer post on GitHub, he's not interested. And we go on to quote, I consider UBO Lite to be too different from UBO to be an automatic replacement. You will have to explicitly find a replacement to UBO according to what you expect from a content blocker. UBO Lite may or may not fulfill your expectations. uBlock Origin should continue to work fine for other browsers, including Firefox, Edge, Opera, and other Chromium-based browsers that support extensions like my new browser, Bestie, Vivaldi, and again, this is the author's words. Google's move to Manifest version 3 support doesn't appear to be entirely driven by attempts to make ad blockers obsolete, but it seems likely that it helped prod decisions in this direction. Google has had a lot of drama surrounding ads recently, like dropping a years-long initiative to replace tracking cookies and try to force advertising past ad blockers on YouTube. For a quick and easy switch to Firefox, check out the link in the show notes and get your block back. And
Firefox says if you follow that link, you'll even get to keep all your open tabs.
hey, you know, this is one of them things I tell people, well, you know, if you care about these things, you ought not be using Chrome anyway. Well, I have to use Chrome for work. Well, then there needs to be a separation between what you do for work and what you do for your personal life, honestly.
I'll probably end up switching to a Chromium-based browser.
I don't, if it's in Chrome, I have no reason to believe that it's not eventually going to be Chromium as well. They
usually develop the other way. They develop Chromium first and then build that to be Chrome.
Yeah,
so
and that's
probably going to be bad for Chromium too.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and I have no reason to believe that it would be otherwise. But yeah, like I said, Firefox is there. That being said, there's things that have been and it always probably will be the case that they just seem to work better on a Chromium browser, and that's why I keep Chromium around for specific tasks like Video Ninja and Nextcloud and stuff like that just for whatever reason seems to work better.
I can try a switch to Firefox, but hopefully I can do some exporting.
I mean, I don't have any problems with there used to be weird problems with it, but it just seems like a lot of that is kind of dissolved in the whatever people used to say about performance. I've not noticed any measurable difference. Because it used to be the other way around with me years ago. I was a Chrome user, and the Firefox was kind of the thing I would use if I wanted to make sure I wasn't tracked, really. But that never was really the case.
I used to do a lot of switching back and forth between Chrome and Firefox as they went through their development cycles. One of them would slow down excessively, and I'd switch to the other, and then back and forth. But I've just ended up on Chrome and stayed there for a really long time now.
I mean, when you're using an Android phone, I mean, it comes off the shelf with Chrome, and you've got access to all your browsing data right there. And yeah, you could put Firefox on that phone too, but that's a lot of futzing around that not everybody's got time for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's understandable, but I think it's going to get to there's going to be several points where people probably ought to take a moment to decide what's important to them, in terms of this stuff, because it's not going to get any better. I promise you that. So, anyway.
Okay, then. GitLab is reportedly up for sale. This is from Developer Tech. GitLab has reportedly garnered interest from buyers and is considering a sale. As AI and cloud computing fuel acquisitions in the technology sector, these mergers and acquisitions are increasingly under review. At a valuation of about $8 billion, GitLab has positioned itself as an essential player in the software development space. Its platform automatically integrates various tools and provides a common tool for software designed by development, operations, and security teams. GitLab has over 30 million registered users and is used by over half of the Fortune 100 companies, making it a significant player in this space. Interestingly, GitLab's headquarters are based in San Francisco, but it runs as a completely remote company with all its employees working from different parts of the globe. This unique structure has helped position GitLab as a tech industry trailblazer in the remote work movement. People familiar with the matter said GitLab has engaged investment bankers to help. There are several prospective buyers in the mix for the company, but apparently there may now be a leading candidate, cloud monitoring firm Datadog, with a market value of $44 billion. Its customer service software allows computer programmers and others to work together using cloud-based tools while keeping tabs on their productivity, especially when more people work remotely. The chances of a deal are said to be weeks away, if not non-existent. The confidential nature of these discussions highlights just how thorny and high-stakes negotiations with tech giants can be. The impact on GitLab's stock has started. Shares initially surged as much as 11.5% before settling for a gain of around 7% in midday trading when news first broke that the company was exploring options, sources said. The fact that the stock responded in this way implies that investors, for one, saw a sale as good news. Needham analyst Mike Sikos said the acquisition has been anticipated for years. This may seem somewhat counterintuitive to many investors, perhaps thinking of companies like AWS and Google Cloud as much more likely buyers. However, Sikos sees synergies between GitLab and Datadog, showcasing the combination and scale-ups that have caught some by surprise in tech sector consolidations. Given its position in the market, GitLab still faces significant challenges. The company's shares have fallen 16% this year as investors worry about potential cuts in customer spending. In contrast, the S&P 500 Application Software Index rose nearly 3% over the same period. GitLab has sharp rivals to contend with, including Microsoft, which, thanks in no small part to its 2018 purchase of GitHub for $7.5 billion. Consequently, this competitive pressure has also presented pricing headwinds for GitLab, as reported in the company's most recent financial statements. The San Francisco-based company's last reported revenue was $169.2 million, up 33% from the same period a year earlier for its last quarter, and it announced it was cash flow positive for the first time ever. However, the company also disclosed the pricing headwinds it is facing as competition increases in its industry. GitLab's unique ownership structure makes the possibility of a deal even more fascinating. The founder and CEO, Sid Sijbrandij, retains 45.51% of the voting stock via dual-class shares. This further complicates any potential deal because Alphabet, Google's parent company, which includes a venture capital arm, maintains a 22.2% voting stake in GitLab. A sale of GitLab would be part of a broader wave of consolidations in the tech sector. According to Deal Logic, in the first half of 2024, the technology sector accounted for the highest share of global M&A activity, involving $327.2 billion worth of deals. This represents a substantial year-on-year increase, with the sector's deal value jumping by just under 42%. Such a prevalence of M&A deals is motivated by the necessity for companies to broaden their range of offered services due to the quickly changing landscape of global business, with significant players in numerous industries, from artificial intelligence to cloud computing. For instance, the technology conglomerate Alphabet is said to have been in advanced talks to purchase cybersecurity upstart Wiz for an estimated $23 billion. Previously, Alphabet was rumored to have considered a purchase proposal for the marketing software maker HubSpot. The tech industry is consolidating, and GitLab's potential sale would be one of the largest events in software development tools and cloud services this year. Whether this particular deal occurs or not, and what its implications for the technology community at large are, remains to be determined.
Interesting. Does anybody have the next one?
Dale does.
Yeah, I got it. Robbins changed his mind. Fun2 shifts to hobby mode. This is from Linuxiac from Londoner. Thank you, Londoner. On our last show, we reported that Daniel Robbins had announced the cessation of Fun2 Linux. 3 weeks later, however, he had changed that original intention. Fun2 Linux, the brainchild of its benevolent dictator for life, BDFL, Daniel Robbins, and the original founder of Gentoo Linux, is taking a step back to what its founder describes as, quote, hobby mode, end quote. Quote, I've decided to keep Fun2 Linux going in a limited capacity. Fun2 Linux will be entering hobby mode. It will continue as a personal project of mine, maintained for myself. You will still be able to ego sync and get periodic updates. You can still use it if you want to, end quote. Okay, what does this, quote, hobby mode, end quote, mean? In short, it will continue to receive his personal attention and maintenance. Fun2 users will still be able to perform updates and maintain their systems, ensuring that despite the scaled back approach, the OS will remain functional and largely up to date for those who choose to stick with it. However, significant changes are on the horizon for the Fun2 community infrastructure. The project will discontinue its bug tracker and community code repositories, shifting the forums and wiki to a read-only mode. This move suggests a departure from active community collaboration, directing users towards platforms like Reddit for self-support and discussion rather than the project's Discord channel. Robbins has offered a lifeline for those deeply integrated into the Fun2 ecosystem, particularly those using Fun2 containers. He is prepared to maintain certain container hosting services and plans new infrastructure to support future projects. So, what can we conclude from this situation? We're looking at a one-man show operating system, calling it a personal project, and it's cutting off its official community channels. Honestly, this sounds more like, quote, coma mode, end quote, than, quote, hobby mode, end quote. The author writes, given these circumstances, uncertainty about the project's future and the owner's unpredictable moves, it's challenging to see who would rely on Fun2 from here on out. But whether we like it or not, these things are a part of the open source world. Anyway, thanks for everything, Fun2. For more information, refer to Robin's announcement and the link in the show notes. And you have to think back to the birth of Linux as a distribution, because soft landing Linux was the impetus for Slackware and Debian. And when Peter and Ian went their separate ways with the code base, that was basically for them, because they had to maintain the code base separately, because nobody wanted to keep up with SLS after the main maintainers just threw up their hands and went away. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, this sounds like Robin, the guy that created Fun2 or maintains Fun2 currently, got tired of the community and deadlines and having to push to get things in, and decided to just, keep doing this for himself. And if the community likes it, they can use it. Otherwise, it's not his problem. And I can understand that standpoint. So if it's too much work for him, it's too much work for him. And if anybody has an issue with it, they can get off their lazy butts and fork.
Yep.
Yeah. That's kind of why I mean, I like that we have these kind of projects out there and that, but I think it's it's demonstrably why it's unwise to like build your castle on that type of foundation,
We have no specific right to Robin's work.
No.
We're not paying for it. It's free and open source. If, like I said, if people want, they can make their own. They can turn it into a business and get paid for it if they want to. But he's allowed to do whatever the hell he wants with what he created.
Yeah, because I think you have to, anybody that's going to like build their infrastructure on these tools needs to keep in mind that this is something, if you're not going to, especially if you're not going to contribute to the project, which so many people don't.
And then demand.
Yeah, and then and then you have you have the nerve to have some kind of expectation of ownership in some way. And it's something you need to keep in consideration, I think. So, yeah.
Okay, if that's everything on that, then let's move on to security and privacy. Anybody got this one? I can take it if not.
I can if you want.
I got it. Hackers leak 2.7 billion data records with social security numbers. This is from Bleeping Computer, and this is via Londoner. Almost 2.7 billion records of personal information for people in the United States, UK, and Canada were leaked on a hacking forum exposing names, social security numbers, all known physical addresses, and possible aliases. The data allegedly comes from National Public Data, a company that collects and sells access to personal data for use in background checks to obtain criminal records and for private investigators. National Public Data is believed to scrape this information from public sources to compile individual user profiles for people in the US and other countries. In April, a threat actor known as USDOD claimed to be selling 2.9 billion records containing the personal data of people in the US, UK, and Canada that was stolen from National Public Data. At the time, the threat actor attempted to sell the data for $3.5 million and claimed to contain records for every person in the three countries. USDOD is a known threat actor who has previously linked to an attempted sale of InfraGard's user database in December 2023 for $50,000. Bleeping Computer at the time contacted National Public Data and never received a response to the email. Since then, various threat actors have released partial copies of the data, with each leak sharing a different number of records and, in some cases, different data. On August 6th, a threat actor known as Fancy leaked the most complete version of the stolen National Public data for free on the breached hacking forum. However, Fenice says the data breach was conducted by another threat actor named SXUL rather than USDOD. The leaked data consists of two text files totaling 277 gigabytes and containing nearly 2.7 billion plain text records rather than the original 2.9 billion number originally shared by USDOD. While Bleeping Computer can't confirm if this leak contains the data for every person in the US, numerous people have confirmed to us that it included their and family members' legitimate information, including those who are deceased. Each record consists of the following information: a person's name, mailing address, and social security number, with some records including additional information, like other names associated with the person. None of this data is encrypted. Previously leaked samples of this data also include phone numbers and email addresses, but these are not included in the 2.7 billion record leak. It is important to note that a person will have multiple records, one for each address they are known to have lived. This also means that this data breach did not impact 3 billion people, as has been erroneously reported in many articles that did not properly research the data. Some people have also told Bleeping Computer that their social security numbers were associated with other people they don't know, so not all the information is accurate. Finally, this data may be outdated, as it does not contain the current address for any of the people we checked, potentially indicating that the data was taken from an old backup. The data breach has led to multiple class action lawsuits against Jericho Pictures, which is believed to be doing business as National Public Data, for not adequately protecting people's data. If you live in the US, this data breach has likely leaked some of your personal information, as the data contains hundreds of millions of social security numbers. It is suggested that you monitor your credit report for fraudulent activity and report it to the credit bureaus if detected. Furthermore, as previously leaked samples also contained email addresses and phone numbers, you should be vigilant about phishing and SMS texts attempting to trick you into providing additional sensitive information. Wow.
Got to watch that DOD, buddy.
USDOD.
That's the biggest threat actor we got.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe if I'm just in the minority about this, but at this point, I think what was the first one was Sony, was 2012 or 2014, and then we've had Home Depot, Target, and I can't remember who else since then. At this
One of the
point,
credit bureaus.
yeah, Experian, yeah. At this point, what information don't they have? And I don't want to say being complacent and saying we shouldn't care, but at this point, why should we care? Because it's pretty much they're just going, well, we could actually compare this and saying, okay, we have a dossier on Joe, and he's lived at these 14 addresses in the past 20 years. We've got Bill here. That's basically all they're doing. And as another tip before I leave it for the other guys, you can freeze your credit for free. Yeah. Nobody but you can access it.
Good luck unfreezing it when you're done.
Well, anyone who has signed up for Facebook knows that all their data is gone anyhow.
It's been gone. It's absolutely been gone. I mean, this is why things like 2FA exist and other mitigation layers have been put in place, because it's probably best to just go ahead and assume, like Dale explained, that everything about you is out there already and being sold, and what are you going to do about that? Honestly, it's like a picture on the internet. Once it's out there, it's out there. You're not going to change your social security number. You're not going to change, much of anything except maybe your address or whatever, email address. So use two-factor authentication. Use pass keys and things like that. Update your passwords often, and use passwords to sites and anything that's got anything to do with your shopping or your bill paying or any of your finances. Make sure these things get updated, and use passwords that are not human rememberable, because the rule of thumb, never forget, Uncle Bill told you this, any password a human being can remember, a computer can crack in seconds. And that's just the long and short of it. So go with that.
Also, if you have Proton Pass, which not everyone has, or if you have a complete Proton package, it includes Proton Pass, and you have to choose to use it, but they do have complete verification and scanning of the darknet to see if your stuff is being used anywhere.
Yep.
So that's a good backup for keeping your data private.
I'm not sure what to tell you to do if it is. Maybe just redo all your passwords. But you know what? That should be good common practice anyway. You should be doing that before you even go searching the dark web. You should just automatically assume it's out there. And that way, it's not surprise, surprise. Dark web has my information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. 0.0.0.0 day. 18-year-old browser vulnerability impacts macOS and Linux devices, from the Hacker News. Cybersecurity researchers have discovered a new 0.0.0.0 day impacting all major web browsers that malicious websites could take advantage of to breach local networks. The critical vulnerability, quote, exposes a fundamental flaw in how browsers handle network requests, potentially granting malicious actors access to sensitive services running on local devices, end quote, Oligo security researcher Avi Lumelsky said. The Israeli application security company said the implications of the vulnerability are far-reaching and that it stems from the inconsistent implementation of security mechanisms and a lack of standardization across different browsers. As a result, a seemingly harmless IP address such as 0.0.0.0 could be weaponized to exploit local services, resulting in unauthorized access and remote code execution by attackers outside the network. The loophole is said to have been around since 2006. 0.0.0.0 day impacts Google Chrome/Chromium, Mozilla Firefox, and Apple Safari, all of which enable external websites to communicate with software that runs locally on macOS and Linux. It does not affect Windows devices, as Microsoft blocks the IP address at the operating system level. Particularly, Oligo Security found that public websites using domains ending in .com are able to communicate with services running on the local network and execute arbitrary code on the visitor's host by using the address 0.0.0.0 as opposed to localhost 127.0.0.1. It's also a bypass of private network access, which is designed to prohibit public websites from directly accessing endpoints located within private networks. Any application that runs on localhost and can be reached via 0.0.0.0 is likely susceptible to remote code execution, including local Selenium grid instances, by dispatching a post request to 0.0.0.0:4444 with a crafted payload. Put differently, the issue is as simple as a malicious web page sending requests to 0.0.0.0 and a port of its choosing that could then be processed by services running locally on that same port, leading to unintended consequences. In response to the findings in April 2024, web browsers are expected to block access to 0.0.0.0 completely, thereby deprecating direct access to private network endpoints from public websites. Quote, when services use localhost, they assume a constrained environment, end quote, Lumelsky said. Quote, this assumption, which can, as in the case of this vulnerability, be faulty, results in insecure server implementations, end quote. By using 0.0.0.0 together with the mode no-cores, attackers can use public domains to attack services running on localhost and even gain arbitrary code execution, RCE, all using a single HTTP request.
Interestingly, if you do a quick ping of 0.0.0.0, it just it's a loop back to 127.0.0.1.
Yeah, localhost.
Yeah, which I never even considered it.
What does Chromium do?
It doesn't do anything. It goes in unable to.
Site cannot be reached.
Yeah. So that's apparently already implemented then, which is good news.
All right. Now let's move on to our bi-weekly wanderings. First up, special guest host Dale Miracle.
I arrived home yesterday afternoon after working almost 5 weeks. It was a week longer due to my company's truck having sensor malfunctions and a leaking air valve. I had a few days in the provided hotel room, so I binge watched YouTube videos. It was the cheaper option than going out and doing some sightseeing. Now that I have the correct settings in my Tailscale Tailnet, I am able to use the Tailscale app on my phone 24/7. It has been working well with acceptable battery usage, and it is kind of neat because it registers itself as a VPN service, so you can actually use Android's built-in feature of starting this when the phone reboots, so I don't even have to manually connect anymore. It just automatically does it. I'm still keeping an eye on that to see how reliable that feature is. I have been testing the Nextcloud Notes app on my phone as a replacement for standard notes. I have nothing against standard notes. The only thing that it is missing, as far as I'm concerned, is Markdown support, of which is a pay feature. The Nextcloud Notes app has that built in, and my Nextcloud is self-hosted out of my apartment. It's right behind me. So it's a win-win for free and open source. I will have more details about my Tailscale setting in episode 54 of Distro Hoppers Digest, which will be the next episode. We should be recording that sometime this week. Perhaps it could also be a good future innards topic. Since the Notes app has been working quite well, I have been moving my notes from standard notes to Nextcloud Notes. Anything needing more privacy is being saved in the Secure Notes feature in the Bitwarden password manager. And I've got it locked down with my YubiKey and insane password, so I'm pretty confident about that, the security-wise. I helped a friend begin the initial stages of organizing his garage. The 14 years of clutter was finally too much for him to tolerate. And that is, he retired a few years ago after working 30 some years. So I think he actually had time to notice it more or notice it enough to want to do something about it because, work 12-hour shifts, you're quite tired for 30 years. I did acquire some items that are going to be taken to the local e-cycling center. The others are needing closer inspection to see if they are still usable. These include a 16-port switch, an 8-port switch, a 5-port switch, which I believe are all gigabit, but I'm not sure about the 16-port. 4 laptops, which are in various states of pieces missing, and missing AC adapters, and an Acer Aspire desktop and the monitor from 2009. They may end up being taken there anyway. I know the person, though not personally, that manages the e-cycling center. I've taken stuff to him over the years. He is a fellow computer geek and has a collection of vintage computers. He is often approached for needing props for movies, TV, or the print media. So not everything is considered e-waste to him, and I don't really feel bad of disposing them, to his service. I would like to send them to people who could use them as well. That's until I can get some time to find out that they're usable and that this doesn't end up being somebody else's e-waste. So we're going to see what Bill has been up to.
Oh, what have I been up to? Well, if I'm reading this on the air, it's because the old gods and the new have shown their favor towards me, and I've made it home after one of the most grueling weeks of my considerable career. As many would be aware, like Dale, I drive a semi-truck for a living, and most weeks I'm out at least 3 nights a week. Some weeks I'll be out from Monday morning all the way until Friday night. This week started slightly different from most in that I trained a younger guy in hauling what we call roll-off. Most people likely have seen the steel boxes on trailers that are able to slide them off and have referred to them as dumpsters. They're typically seen at construction sites or wherever large-scale cleanup is being done. Other applications exist as well, such as the ones we were hauling, which contain the wastewater solids from the factory in Fort Wayne that makes the Silverado and the Sierra pickup trucks. We take the boxes to Cape Girardeau, Missouri to dump at a quarry. All went well, and I did other things after returning from that, but on Thursday, and actually I do have more to say about what happened in between, but on Thursday, I set off to do another one of those boxes, except this time I was just by myself. Shortly after dumping my box and heading down to a truck stop south of Cape Girardeau, I lost all of my engine coolant. It turns out the air compressor, and I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of anything like this before. But the air compressor, which supplies the pressure for the brakes and the air ride system, had become pumping air into the coolant system, and in turn was taking coolant into the air system. The fix for this is a new compressor, which isn't always easy to find, especially on the road. I was resolved to wait until Monday for a new part, given I was able to overcome the problem with the immediate goal of keeping my motor running for supplying electricity for, TV, laptop, refrigerator, and all that by taking the cap off the radiator. Because what was happening was the pressure comes off the compressor at about 120 pounds per square inch directly into your coolant system. And so what'll happen is it blows that water pressure right out the first thing that'll give. And it's usually one of the hoses where they're attached. And in this case, yeah, I was able to, not the first night though. The first night, my mechanic back at the shop did not tell me about that because he was not aware that I've got like lots of bells and whistles that go off, and then the computer will kill the motor if it's overheated. He wasn't sure if I had that stuff or not, so he didn't tell me to take the cap off. And so I slept with no air conditioning in southern Missouri in August. Yay. But that's the second time this week I had to do that because my air conditioning went out Monday night while I was training the new guy. And that was just the air conditioning. So, my other operating, everything else was fine. I was able to drive the truck, except I had no air conditioning. And that was a bit of, that was a bit of hell on earth too, because I'm training this kid and we're parked next to each other, and I thought, if the temperature gets down to a certain point, I can close the water vents or the ball valves on my water lines, and I could keep coolant from flowing back into the cab, which completely disables anything from producing any heat back there whatsoever. And then I could keep the truck running, because again, I've got a refrigerator in there and I want to be able to use electricity for other stuff. So I turned the air on, just, regular blowing air, kind of recirculating, and then I went to sleep. And I woke up probably minutes away from a heat stroke. And the sleeper, I've got a curtain that completely separates off the sleeper from the front cab where the driver and passenger seats are. And it does a pretty good job. It basically blacks out the sleeper to where it could be the middle of the day and you've got kind of the sensation of night back there, which is nice. But when I woke up, I got thermometers in the back and the front. It was 100 degrees in the back where I was at, and 120 up front, because the heat from the motor was just kind of making its way back into the cab. It didn't get cool enough overnight to keep that from happening. So I had to shut everything down, open the windows. I've got a fire escape door on my sleeper that I open, and some butterfly vents, and still took an hour and a half for the whole inside of the truck to cool down to where I could actually at least lay down and try to sleep. And then that whole process started over again for a different reason on Thursday night. So I was stuck right up until last night when finally the part came in, and I was able to, once that part came in, it was just, the part was the compressor itself. They bolt these compressors directly onto the engine, to the bottom, the block. This is done so that you won't lose air even if a belt snaps or something like that, because the compressor is basically gear driven right off of the motor. And so when something goes out, it's quite involved to replace it. But they did. They flushed and filled the coolant, blew all the coolant out of the air tank. That was an interesting thing, Dale. The wet tank was actually wet this time. I'm purging the tanks in that wet tank. See, you have 3 tanks in the case of my truck, where you've got a wet tank and 2 tanks, a primary and a secondary, and that's what feeds all of the air brakes that you have on a semi truck and trailer. The first tank, you get moisture in the air just because of humidity and other free radical environmental things that happen between the time the air is taken in and the time it's used. The wet tank is supposed to be the place where that's accumulated, and then you can purge that out periodically. And it was probably, I've never seen anything like it. It was about half full. And when I pulled the purge valve, it just shot out pink mist from the coolant. And like I said, never seen anything like that. But I'm home now. I'm alive. I got to go right back and do the exact same thing tomorrow morning. But hopefully, I don't know. That was hell on earth. So I didn't get a chance. I've been talking about it, I know, for quite some time. I'm going to do a couple of videos I've been talking about on dual booting Mint with Windows 11, and I've done the research on it, and I've prepared kind of the outline of what I'm going to talk about. I thought it would be more complicated, but after doing it, I see that if you install Windows 11 and you shrink the partition on Windows 11 and then leave it alone, do not repartition that new space, and then install Mint and allow Mint to automatically do its thing, it will successfully install Mint in that unpartitioned space and use the correct location for the EFI and all that stuff. And that's worked 3 times in a row for me now. So I didn't have to get complicated with that. But I will put out that video anyway, because there is a little bit of nuance to it. And I know I've been talking about it for some time, but I will get it done. It's just real life, you know. But anyway, that's about all I've got. So how about you, Joe?
Well, things started out pretty well over the last 2 weeks. I decided to see if I could get VR working on an old Samsung Galaxy Gear VR, the old model that only allowed for micro USB phones to be connected to it. I ended up pulling out an old S7 to do it. I was able to get the S7 wiped and logged in, but as soon as I plugged it into the Gear VR, it would load the screen that say disconnect and install all the software. I tried to let it go through the process, but it would say that the connection had failed and such an application failed to be installed. I did some research and found out that most of the applications are not available anymore for that. I looked, and some people had gotten it to work by installing the apps manually, but when I went and looked at all the sites where you could get the applications, it just seemed a little sketchy. So, backup plan. Google Cardboard. Definitely not as good an environment as what gets created. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on a second. All right, so backup plan. Google Cardboard is not as good an environment as what gets created by Samsung software, but it will allow for individual applications that can be run, and many people are still developing for it. The problem then becomes when the USB is connected for the Gear, it starts the process automatically. I still want to use the Gear because it has good lenses and a way to focus, and is also comfortable to wear. Looking online for suggestions on what to do, most people's answers were buy something newer. They're not that expensive. Well, I may do that one day. I still like making old stuff work, so I continued searching. Someone gave the obvious answer. If the USB doesn't connect, then you can use it however you want. Can't use the buttons and things, but it's better than nothing. A simple hair tie to work as a spacer, and everything is good to go. Not the easiest to use, but with a mouse paired, I can do a lot of the things, and I can also go backward and forward with a click. So that is working, mostly for video, some games. It's a little bit hard to control because, it's mostly where you look, tilting your head, things like that. But it does work. Now, 2 shows back, I was discussing creating MagSafe phone mounts using some magnetic rings that I ordered from AliExpress. Well, I have completed that project. The first design that I did before the magnets arrived, after modding someone else's STL, worked, but not in the way that I wanted. Because the design put the magnet under some plastic, even though it was very thin, it did not have the gripping force that I thought was safe. So I ended up gluing a second magnet to the front, and that worked much better. But I don't want to use 2 magnets for every mount. Instead, I went back to the STL and moved the 17mm ball mount to the other side and learned a better way to get 2 flat surfaces to touch in Tinkercad. Much easier, much quicker. After that, I reprinted and everything works great. I've made 3 or 4 so far and moved the manufactured one that is heat stable out to the car. And I'm using the other ones in various places throughout my house. One in the garage, one here in the living room, and they work really good. Then we start getting into the fun things in my life. First, I was driving the Mini Cooper and it started overheating. After a couple of false starts in trying to find the issue and refilling the reservoir several times, I was able to find the leak. One of the retention brackets had broken, and the front radiator reservoir hose had fallen down and was scraping the ground until it ruptured, and I lost all the coolant. Thankfully, this happened right outside of a Walgreens, and I was able to get into the parking lot and get to work. This being the Mini, I did not have my usual toolbox with me, but I did have a knife and a multi-tool with pliers in my pocket. Getting my hands under a Mini is difficult, but I was able to get the hose cut at the hole and reattached to the center coupler. After 3 hours, in the middle of the day in Texas at 104 in the parking lot, I now have a very lovely tan. Next day, I find out that my van has a dying alternator, and I will get to replace that as well, probably right after the show today. I looked up the instructions online, and it's not that hard of a job. If the van was 2 years newer, I would have to go through the wheel well to get the job done. But this should be easy as long as I can find the right tools. Still, the alternator comes out to, I have it listed as 150-ish here. It actually ended up being like 250-ish dollars even after the core return. Then, later that night, I found out that one of my air conditioners died in the house. From what I can tell, it is the compressor, but thankfully I have a warranty company for that. But sadly, they will not be able to come out to fix it until Monday, as everyone else's air conditioners are dying too. Welcome to Texas. Really glad I have the warranty company, because looking up the prices of those, we are talking well over $1,000 just for the parts. And I try not to play with mains power. But that's just me. A friend did loan us some portable air conditioners, and so we have 2 of those running. I'm going to hate to see my electric bill next month, even just with a couple of days of those running. And also, my dog's health is suffering, and she's going to need to go to the veterinarian tomorrow. All of this kind of made me realize that I need to look into getting a new job. My current job is offering new employees considerable amount more than what I am making, but will not give me a raise due to budget constraints. Much less interested in retention than in hiring. But if I can't afford some simple emergencies that come along because I am living paycheck to paycheck, then it is time to start looking elsewhere for a career. So I have started applying, and I will probably need to shave the beard and cut the hair before interviews start. I really hate job hunting. Exciting.
Why don't you just quit and get them to hire you back at the new wage?
If only it worked that way. If only it worked that way, but it don't. All right, Moss, over to you.
Okay, it's been crazy time around here. I did manage to work one day this week, and it turned down another because it came so late in the morning. I mean, when they call you at 7:04 and you're supposed to show up at work at 7:30 or 7:45, and it's 22 miles away, that's really not going to work for me. I got a lot of things done, but they seem to keep overlapping, and I can't multitask without becoming unhinged. I got my passport applied for. Now I have to wait 6 to 8 weeks to receive it, and then another 2 weeks for my birth certificate to be returned to me. My Pine Time died. I am sad. I have never been so fond of a watch as I was of this. I'm working with the community to find out what to do next. Apparently, they have a 14-day refund and return policy and a 30-day warranty, and I've had it for 5 weeks, so I'm SOL. I was told to keep it for parts and buy another, but I'm not inclined to do so on the premise that $25 plus shipping every 5 weeks will get expensive. Our new kitten did not work out. She was not getting along with other cats, and Suzanne's allergies flared up again. For some reason, she is allergic to female cats and not male. And we've never heard this from anyone before, but every time we've tried getting a female kitten, her face clogs up. We took her to a local no-kill animal shelter. I miss her, but she was one cat too many, and I knew it when I tried to keep her. I still haven't loaded Ken McConnell's books, the Destroyer series, books 4 to 6 of his entire series, onto my Pine Tab 2, just dragging my feet or overwhelmed or something. I had to completely reinstall the operating system because every time I turn it to read sideways, the screen would lock and it wouldn't accept my passcode to unlock. So I had to reinstall the operating system, and I did reinstall the ebook reader, but I have not yet reinstalled the books themselves. I hope it works. I recorded and produced Full Circle Weekly News 379 using Audacity 3.6.1 from the flat pack. What a headache that was. The screen kept going blank, and I had to resize and re-resize it to get it back over and over and over. I also could not see my breaths. The waveform did not show up for my breaths like it did in everything I've used previously. I cut those out to help keep the podcast short. So it was a trick that Leo taught me when he turned the show over to me. I'm looking for alternatives. Might just find an old copy of 2.4.2 or even 2.3.2 and run with that. I looked at Tenacity again, but last I've read is it still is having problems loading in Mint. Some of the guys have disputed that when I talked to them about it. I wish Muse Group had just gone the other way and not purchased Audacity, and my life would be so much easier. I think for this show, I'm using 3.4.2 in Mint. I tried to get on with Bodhi using 2.4.2, but for some reason, Bodhi would not connect me to Video Ninja. I guess that's it. Why don't we talk about something else?
Okay, I guess we're moving on to the Linux innards. And in this week's show, we're going to be discussing home networking tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts. And we're going to be starting out with what we each run in our own home network setup. Bill?
Yeah, it might be interesting to go and actually look. If you don't follow with our show notes, go to our website and have a look, because this particular week we're going to talk about the hardware that we use in our homes, and a couple of us have got some pretty involved setups, and it's kind of interesting. And we put some illustrations to show the equipment that we're using, so go check that out. There'll be a link in the show's description. My ISP is Frontier Communications, which is the company that bought out Verizon Fios, like 120 years ago, something like that. And I've purchased a symmetrical 500 meg connection with a static IP address on a business account. That business account only costed me another $13, and the advantage you get to that, you get with that is above and beyond anything else, is that when you call the phone number for support, a human being actually answers the phone and speaks clearly with you and understands some of the problems you're having. The modem, there is a modem involved in all this. I don't know what the actual make is of it. It's sitting in a box. I've replaced the Ethernet cable that comes off of it, but I don't know who makes it, because without taking it off the wall inside of the lockbox, the only thing you can see on it is the Frontier logo. So it is what it is. It's fiber optic into the house, and then that particular modem turns it into usable internet for all the other devices. Now, from there, my equipment begins, and the first thing I've got hooked up is a TP-Link ER7206 gigabit router, which is actually sitting just off camera, right beside that on-air sign. And it's part of TP-Link's small to medium-sized business line of wired routers with a lot of enterprise features. The thing I like about TP-Link stuff is that they are really good about keeping firmware up to date, and they give real good information as to what bugs they're fixing and what problems they're fixing with the different firmware updates. And I mean, this thing is professional. This thing really flies. The only thing about it is the interface, logging into it and then changing settings or managing things. Is a little bit obtuse compared to something off the shelf at Best Buy or Walmart or whatever, just because it is meant to be managed by a professional, so it's a little bit more involved, but a little bit of Googling, a little bit of patience, and you'll learn how to set these things up. And then once it's set up, like I literally barely messed with it at all, other than the firmware updates. Because you can schedule reboots, which I do. I schedule a reboot once a week, just before any of the shows on Saturday morning. That way, I've got a fresh router every time I go and start recording or what have you. Okay, so after that, there's the Wi-Fi access point, which is also a TP-Link, TLWA 3001 Wi-Fi 6 wireless gigabit access point. Now, this thing hangs in the hallway upstairs on the first level. I'm in the basement, and then there's 2 levels above me. And prior to buying this thing, I had another. I've got the one. I had the one that Moss has now, and it sat kind of in one corner of the house. And really, I was able to get good connectivity on that first floor, but upstairs we had to use a separate access point, and that was a problem. So when I decided to redo everything, because that device was also doing the job of routing too. So what I thought, my intention was, okay, I'm managing all these websites. I need something a little bit more robust. Well, this is just a Wi-Fi access point. All it does is scream Wi-Fi service, and boy, Nelly does it, because it hangs on the wall in the hallway, and it by itself is feeding the entire house, including down here. I can sit down here and stream on Wi-Fi, and it works perfectly well. The TVs in my bedroom, my daughter's bedroom, are both using it. The boys upstairs use it for their gaming laptops, and they're running their cloud gaming and everything off of it, and it's been absolutely flawless. So, and the nicest thing is that it's PoE, because there's really no outlet right there beneath it. So what I ended up doing was just putting the hole in the floor. I've got the Ethernet running through one of those little conduit things on the wall, and then going down here into the basement, plugged into a PoE injector, and then the only thing that's plugged into it is the Ethernet cable. It gets the power from that, which, if anybody's ever used that, makes it real convenient. So there's that, and then also I've got this 24 port gigabit Ethernet switch, and right now I'm using about half of those, believe it or not, in addition to the Ethernet ports on the router itself. And it's the reason is that, although we've got that good, reliable Wi-Fi in the house, it's really good practice to Ethernet everything you can in a home network. It absolutely is. And I've future-proofed the whole place by running Category 8 Ethernet everywhere. Every single thing in this house is running on Category 8, which is, I don't know what, like 900 gigabytes per second or something like that. It's way overkill, but it was not that much more for the cable. So that's kind of the direction I went. Also, that's sitting right behind me. That you can see, right, the corner of it anyway, right behind me, over my shoulder. and it just hums away. There's no interface to it. It really, you plug the line coming out of the router into it, and then everything else into it as well, and it just hums away and handles all the packets beautifully. You don't have to worry about it. And then I've got two other types of switches. Now these switches I bought the same time I bought the router Wi-Fi access point that Moss is using now. And they're made by the same company, Linksys. The first one is the LGS 108, which is an 8-port gigabit Ethernet, and it's also unmanaged. There's no interface to it. It really just kind of hums along and splits up, gives you more Ethernet ports. And then I also have I got two of these Linksys SE3005 5-port gigabit Ethernet unmanaged switches. Now what these are doing, okay, so that 8-port switch is upstairs in the upstairs living space on the second floor, because you go up to where my two boys that still live at home, they've got kind of their own living room up there, which is where their TV is, and then they've got kind of like their own gaming chairs and all this stuff, and they've got all the Xboxes and all that stuff, and there's literally one Ethernet going across my ceiling down here, well, through the floor joists, and then up the the exhaust or the vent pipe which goes to the roof. It's running along that and then into the attic and then back out to the rooms in the upstairs. Well, this switch splits it up to where I've got Ethernet going to their TV, to their Xbox X, their Xbox S. There's a couple other things I can't think of right now, but that way everything up there is also set up with Ethernet as well. The two smaller ones are at the one is at the TV in I guess I'm only using one of those now that I think about it. The TV in the living room, which has I've got the TV, then there's a NVIDIA Shield and a Sony surround sound system, which gets its firmware updates over the internet and things like that. So I've got all of that hooked into this switch. That way only one Ethernet cable has to come through the floor and feed all those devices. I used to have a second one, and I guess it's still there, but it's not really getting used that much in my daughter's room, because I had her, prior to getting the new Wi-Fi, I had her TV and Blu-ray player and Fire Stick running off of one of these things rather than Wi-Fi. But since that Wi-Fi has been so good, I have not needed it. So yeah, there's a lot of Ethernet going through the house, as much as possible. I mean, I sat and tried to come up with a number of Ethernet lines going here and going here. If I was to diagram it on a piece of paper, it would look like the Habsburg family tree or something like that. But then again, no, that's not actually a good representation. But it was quite a bit to deal with, and it's built up over time. But that's kind of like the most important thing I've got to say about it, is that run everything you can on Ethernet for no other reason than a guy cannot sit two doors down and hack your Ethernet from his car. You know, your Wi-Fi is how they're going to do that. Now, as far as the Wi-Fi goes, when you get a Wi-Fi device, even these newer ones, the first thing you need to do is change that password to something that can't be remembered, and then that will do the best. That will be the best thing you can do to secure your home network. But that's the devices I've got running. I suppose we'll talk more about some of the tips and tricks. But Moss, what you got?
And for anyone listening to the show, Bill has placed all the photographs of all this equipment in the show notes. So
Yeah, I was mentioning that at the beginning. It's a good idea to go check that out. It's kind of cool.
Well, what I've got, my KUB fiber comes in the wall to an Adatran SDX822 small V modem. I get symmetrical 100 megabit per second for $65 a month. And it's not a major carrier; they're a local utility company. I then only have one Ethernet out, and that goes to the router that I got from Bill, which is a Linksys WRT 3200 ACM. Big fancy thing I could have never afforded. Obviously, that's where all of our Ethernet ports start. I just put the out wire into the Linksys, and then the next out wire from the Linksys to my Belkin F4G0500 unmanaged network switch, which I inherited when my friend John Noggle passed. And it just sits there on the wall blinking at me. I'm not sure I have exactly the model that's shown that looks like a newer version of it. So, like, Suzanne did not want her computer to hooked up via Ethernet because she didn't want the cord running all the way back there. So she's running her computer on Wi-Fi. The phones and tablets and stuff are on Wi-Fi. The Belkin box is across the room from where the Wi-Fi router is, and I have wires running to the machine that I use for my TV viewing, which is a M700 Tiny, of course, and another wire running from there into my study to power my M700 in here. And so it's simple. We don't need anything. We don't need all the fancy stuff we have, but it works. What do you got, Joe?
Well, I don't have a fancy setup. I have the AT&T fiber modem. I don't even know what model it is. I don't ever look at it beyond the one time I went in to set it up so that it does, none of the actual routing in my house. It just acts as a dumb modem. It does have a Wi-Fi router built in and everything. It's just I don't want to use it. I want to use my own setup. So my next item is the RT-AX860U, which I think is AC 5600. It's a dual band router. It's basically the hub in my living room. A bunch of things are wired directly into that. But next thing down the line would actually be my Netgear 5-port gigabit Ethernet unmanaged switch. Actually, I think I have the 8-port and the 5-port, and I think it's the 8-port that's hooked up, but I'm only using 4 of the slots, plus the 1 slot for the inbound internet. And then hooked up to that, I have the GL iNet GL SFT 1200 secure travel Wi-Fi router, which is an AC 1200 dual band gigabit Ethernet wireless router. Now, the reason I picked that one is because it runs OpenWRT, and I can do all the fun stuff with it and control it any way I want to. And it has different modes that you can set up, so I can take it out of my garage and take it on the road with me and either use it as an access point by connecting it to my phone and using something like Easy Tether, or I can buy a USB SIM card, hook it up, and use it that way. And or if I want to, I can have it act as a file server with a USB hard drive hooked up to it. It's actually a really cool device for what it is, especially since it's running out of the box OpenWRT. If you're looking for something like that, I definitely recommend GL iNet. They make them in all sizes of travel routers. This is one of the larger ones. I also have one of the smaller ones that I don't use as much anymore that sits in a drawer that I can also take on the road if I need to.
I need one of these. Now, can you power that just with USB-C or something like
Yes,
that?
absolutely. 5-volt.
Yeah, see, that's
Straight up
fantastic.
5-volt.
If for no other reason, I'd like to have something like that just to run Chromecast. I don't need internet. I don't need it connected to the outside internet, but just to have enough networking going on in the truck that I could Chromecast something from my phone real easy. Because right now the system I've got's kind of convoluted, and this would really simplify things. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah, that's USB-C power on that, and
That's cool.
it's a good device. It has not given me any trouble since I got it. And then I have a couple of different devices that we'll probably get into more towards the end. I've discussed them before. My router, the RTAX860U, does have WireGuard, and it does have some ad blocking built in that I can use through like AdGuard DNS or anything like that. And I also have a Pi-hole and a DNS sinkhole. Well, it's still running Pi-hole. I have a couple of redundancies there just to keep everything working. So if one of them goes down, I have backups for everything. So color me a nerd. But yeah, that's mostly my setup. Dale?
Okay, well, I think I've probably, just because I'm a huge networking nerd, I've got the most complex, overly engineered network, but it's my hobby and I like it. So, like Bill, I completely forgot about my modem. I have no idea what it is. When I moved here 2 years ago, I had a grandfathered plan and regular cable boxes and etc. And when I wanted to upgrade my internet, they're like, "Wow, your plan isn't even in our system, so it's going to take us about 10, 15 minutes to recreate your account." And yeah, that was like a 45-minute phone call to them just because of that. But in any case, I got these, which is not really part of what we're talking about. This is what my cable box is now. And it's got, where is it? And it's basically like a newer version of the Roku or Chromecast type thing. But I'm going to re-engineer everything because, like Bill said, you want everything wired. So I'm going to have to, while I'm home, run Ethernet to my TV in my living room and into my bedroom, so that they're not on Wi-Fi. But let me get along with my rundown. My ISP is Spectrum, which was Charter and Cox, I think. No, Charter and Time Warner, and maybe Cox, because I think Time Warner, when they divested themselves of the internet part of the company, I think they sold it to one of the two of them, and then those two merged. That's as I remember it. And it is a residential plan. And I wanted the gigabit, and that's what prompted the whole upgrading my plan. So it's 1 gigabit down, 30 up, and I've seen it as high as 42 or so. And my down is anywhere between 8 and 9, 950. I haven't really tested it recently. And I have a dynamic IP. My modem doesn't have any routing capabilities. It's also known as not a gateway, because the default, if you call up for service, they're going to default you to a gateway, which, depending on your cable company, it may have a built-in access point and it may not. The ones that Spectrum provides to the customers has a built-in access point, and I believe it's Wi-Fi 6. I think that's the one that my friend has. The router, I used to have a Unify security gateway, but something while I was away at work ate it. It fried the WAN port. Don't know what happened. None of the other devices in my network were damaged, but it was killed. And at that point, it was 4 or 5 years old, so way out of warranty.
Sounds like
So
a
I've
lightning
been-
strike if it was a WAN port.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing else was affected, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It had to have been that or a brownout or
Yeah.
a surge. I have no idea. But I've been wanting to try pfSense. It is a router software based on FreeBSD. And the box that I had before I built my current Plex and Nextcloud server using my Ryzen 9. Well, my router is a Xeon E3 1231 version 3, 3.4 gigahertz, has 16 gigs of DDR3 memory, 240 gigabyte Kingston A400 SSD, and an Intel quad port 82576 gigabit network card. It's a PCIe. I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm thinking it's a by 4 card. I don't think it's a by 8. I'm thinking it's a by 4. Anyways, it's you have 1 by, 2 by, 4 by, 8 by, and then you have 16. It's just how much bandwidth it has. And your graphics card would generally be 8 or 16. But anyways, that's overkill. This basically could route 10 gigabits or 20 gigabits. You do not need a Xeon routing your network, but it was free because I had paid for it 10 years ago. And it's running pfSense 2.7.2 release. Now my access point is a Ubiquiti Unify access point long range, supports Wi-Fi 5. The model is UAP-AC-LR, and it's industrial velcroed to my ceiling with cable management with a white chase thing, so it blends into the ceiling as much as possible. And I think my apartment is 800 square feet. And I actually had to turn the power down on it. I'm thinking I'm using medium power. And I can still access it from my car, which is parked just 30 some feet in front of my unit. Then what I call my core switch, we can talk about these nomenclatures later if you want to get really nerdy. It is a Ubiquiti Unified Light 8-port PoE. It's a USW Light 8 PoE with hyphens. And it supports all the current PoE standards. And my old one of my original ones that I had bought 8-9 years ago, however long it's been, is the Ubiquiti Unify Switch 8 of 60 watt. It's the US-8-60 watt. It's a 60 watt PoE. It supports the older standards, and I'm not really using it because the new access point that I bought to replace this one, when I upgraded, it didn't support it. So it's actually running off of my 8-port. Unfortunately, it's longer cable run. And then what I'm going to have to get a couple more of these off of Amazon, more than likely, unless I want to drive the 40-mile trip up to Micro Center, is the Ubiquiti Unify Flex Mini 5-port. It's a USW-Flex-Mini. These are all in our show notes. It's PoE powered. So It's a really cool feature. Just like the my access point is PoE powered. So there's one cable. It's my Cat 5e, which is good up to gigabit. If you want to do anything faster than that, you would have to get the Cat 6 or go all the way up like Bill did and get the Cat 8. And these are pretty cool because, like I said, they're powered by PoE. So you have one cable going to it, and you do sacrifice a port, but you're going to have an uplink anyway, so no big deal. So a 5-port really ends up being a usable 4-port, which is the same for your core switch. It's going to be a 7-port or a 15-port because you're going to have to get the internet into it. So sort of gotcha. And then in the show notes, I have a picture of my 24-port patch panel, and the 8-port switch is sitting on it, and my 2 Lenovo ThinkCenter Tinies. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the models. I can probably add them later. But the one is a 6th Gen i3. The other one is a Ryzen 5. It's the 4th Gen Ryzen that they only made desktop parts for. They never made any laptop parts. So, anyways, the one of them runs the Unify management software. What Unify is it's made by a company called Ubiquity. And it's what they call a single pane of glass. And we can get into more of this later. And it's a web-based GUI where you can do all the settings instead of going to each device separately. If you have managed switches, like Bill's are all unmanaged. So all they do is forward Ethernet frames. You can't control any of it. It basically, a frame comes in, a frame goes out. And then both of my Tinies, one's running a Pi-hole and the other one's running another Pi-hole for redundancy. Plus, they also are members of my Tailscale Tailnet. And then if we have time, in case this goes too long tonight, we can also discuss, and I'll have to take my headphones off and go in my kitchen to get it. But I got a new toy. It's a industrial strength travel router that I bought that is a little bit more complicated than what Joe has. But like I said, I'm a huge networking nerd. So as Tim Taylor from the Home Improvement show from the 90s, it's more power. Arr, arr, arr.
Y'all don't know nothing about that.
I kind of do.
But that's my setup.
Now, I guess I should have mentioned I'm running a Pi-hole as well on a Pi 3 on Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit.
Well, that's what we can get into next
Yeah.
here is all the stuff that we're running periphery to this for our networking
Right.
solutions. So like you're running a Pi-hole, which blocks ads throughout your network.
Well, so no, because if I do that, then my wife can't play her stupid little games, because the way they work is you got to watch a little ad and then it moves you on to the next thing. Now I could sit and whitelist or allow list the ads, but she goes through these games. I had to redo her phone not long ago, which I just did a hardware reset basically, because she goes through about 100 of these games a month. It would be absolutely impossible for me to keep up with the allow list for these things. So I just use that DNS address for individual devices that I want to use, for like this one, for example. So you have that option. Everything else can just use 1.1.1.1 or 8.8.8.8, whatever you want to use.
Well,
in this case, I mean, each device can specify, and you got to get into the, like on Mint Cinnamon, you got to get into the network manager settings and change the change it from automatic DNS, which means it basically gets its DNS from the router, to handling its own DNS queries, which send it all to the Pi-hole, and then Pi-hole uses 1.1.1.
I might end up doing that. Just have my computers go to the Pi holes, and then let everybody else just deal with ads, because I get tired of hearing this won't load.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and not only that, there was certain like TV apps that just weren't working. That stupid CW app just would not even start with. And I've got people with Pi-hole, and I've got people in this house that insist on believing that some of those shows on CW are worth watching.
Some of you listening to the show might think you have to be a tech nerd to get this stuff to run. I am not. Mine runs. I just plug it.
Moss thinks he's not.
I don't know half of what you guys know.
Well, like for me, my router, it does point to my 2 Pi holes, the one that's set up on the gigabit bricks, which is faster. And then as a backup, it has my other Pi hole in case I lose power, because only one of them will automatically turn back on when the power comes back on, and that's the Raspberry Pi Zero. My gigabit bricks, I have to manually turn that back on. So I have that redundancy there. Now, with the router itself has WireGuard set up on it, which is my fastest way to set up fastest WireGuard connection. But since I have the bricks and I have the Zero, I have set WireGuard up on both of those as a redundancy. So if something happens and my router's WireGuard won't connect, I can still connect to the WireGuard on those two.
I should do something like that. Right now, I've only got my WireGuard on one of these. I don't even remember which one of the big machines behind me. And it's been 100% reliable. The problem with things being 100% reliable is that you become complacent about it, and then you're so used to relying on it that once it does drop out, your brain just goes away instantly, and you forget how to deal with it. So that's probably something good to have some redundancy on.
Dale's back with show and tell.
Uh-oh, what do we got, Dale? Is that your fancy road router?
Yeah, just in case we have time to talk about it, I wanted to get it before I forgot. But I didn't mean to derail.
Well, take it or don't take it. You got the choice.
Well, no,
go for it.
We're doing this freestyle, so
yeah,
this part of our show.
Freestyle.
So, this is a new venture by Mobile Must Have. It is a mobile lifestyle solution. The gentleman that created it, and he has a partner, but I didn't read too much about his partner's background. But his background is he was an IT consultant, and he actually ended up starting his own consultancy. And he's semi-retired, where the people below him are running that part of the company, and he's pretty much retired into an RV. And what does a self-respecting networking nerd, computer nerd, do when they want good internet when they're in the middle of the Sedona forest? Well, you pretty much, as what Joe likes to say occasionally, when something's a hammer, everything's a nail. Well, if you spent your career working on networking gear that, costs as much as a car, you want to use that stuff at home. It's pretty much why my network here is over-engineered, because of my previous IT life. And so what he basically did, long story short, is they, over a course of several years, and I'm not going to go into the whole backstory, they pretty much started marketing lesser expensive options for what they call travel routers. And what they were initially meant to be is, I think I mentioned this in the, I'm not sure if we were streaming that yesterday or not, but when I mentioned this yesterday, that they were intended to be a failover system for a corporate network. So that if the network goes down, they can route everything over the mobile internet. And you can't just do that on a simple hotspot device because of the amount of traffic that's going to be going across it. So they actually will use these. And this is not one of them. This is based on the same operating system that those use, because some of those, like I said, they can cost as much as a car. And like, I'll open up the box here, but it's called RoamLink Connected. RoamLink Always Connected Global Multi-Carrier Internet. I have the managed one, which basically means I can't twiddle the dials and turn the knobs. I told them I want an appliance. I want to plug it in and I want to use it, because after driving 600 miles a day, I don't want to fiddle with stuff. My fiddling is reserved for Distro Hopper's Digest when I'm reviewing a distro. That's my playtime. I don't want to have to figure out why my Wi-Fi isn't working or my hotspot isn't working, which I'm not going to go into that rant, but I don't know if it's my Pixel and I don't know if it's AT&T, but curse both of you. This, let me take it out of the plastic wrap. This, I'm not sure if my camera is going to focus on something, but we forgot to put pictures of it on the show notes. I'll take a picture and have Bill add it later, but or give you the link and you can probably find an image on the internet. Like I said, I'm not sure if these are focusing, but basically the bottom two are the Wi-Fi antennas. Then the other ones, the middle one is a GPS. That's optional. It has a thing in there where it can track where you've been, and which may not be a good thing if you're a privacy type person. I'm not sure if that's accessible through internet. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far into it. Like I said, I got this thing Saturday when I got home, and it's been sitting in the box since. I haven't had time to mess with it. But then the others are the blade antennas, which are basically, I'm going to try it when I go out to work and see how it does with just these. But they do also have SMA attachable external antennas that are basically these flat panels that you can either like a suction cup mount to your window, or if they've got pole mount, something like that, I could probably attach it to one of my grab handles on the truck, or I could just use the suction cup mount on one of my side windows. But on the back is the status indicator. It tells you that you're connected. And like I said, I'm not sure if this is focusing really well, but up above the green is the indicator lights. Oh, sorry, people. But anyways, then you have the power. I bought the optional 12-volt plug because I have an inverter in the truck, and then when I'm running the APU, it has a generator, 5,000 watt generator. And I figured if this can run on 12 volts, might as well. Why do I want to get a wall wart that's converting AC? Well, why is it I have an inverter that's converting DC to AC, then AC back to DC? Might as well just use direct 12. I think this uses 12 volt. Yeah, 12.
So this thing connects to multiple carriers.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to, Bill. So this is basically, as you can see the size here, it's about the size of, I have small hands, so it's about the length of an adult male's hand and maybe about 2 inches thick, maybe about a centimeter,
Got it.
something like that. But in any case, this, like I said, if you're familiar with not necessarily Cisco, because that's a little bit more advanced type stuff, but because this doesn't have a CLI, the command line interface, as far as I know, I could be wrong. This is more like the Armada TP-Link, which is what the models above what Bill is using has a management software just like the Unify.
Well, the Omada is what I'm using, and that
Oh,
does
you
have
are?
management. So yeah,
Okay.
there is management software involved, which I didn't. I opted not to go with because
Okay.
I mean it's only that one device, and if I need to do that from the road, it's web based. But
Yeah.
so what? Okay, so obviously I'm interested in this. What you're doing is you're paying for two 5G carrier services, and then
Well, actually, how this works, and to finish that thought, the interface is more if you're like used to using Dell Power Connect back
Yeah.
in the day, the interface is a lot like that. Or maybe some of the older Linksys or D-Link. That interface is pretty much what this looks like, but it's just more complicated because you can start editing dB values of transmitters and a whole bunch of other things that's beyond the purview of this discussion. Now, how this actually works, from the 9 hours of binging that I did of watching stuff tangentially related to this and specifically related to this, because like I said, they launched this last week. And the secret sauce is this has two SIM sockets and eSIM compatible. I'm doing the managed version of this because I want to treat it as an appliance, so they're using the eSIM. But if I were to buy this wholesale on the internet, just buy it from them and configure it myself, which was an option, but like I said, I didn't want to learn cellular communications to be able to do this. You can do two SIMs. Now, the brainchild behind this, and this guy's a genius, how he thought of this, but he created an MVNO, which is a mobile virtual network operator. What he is doing is he's taking the signal coming from the towers and he has that on one SIM. So it's registered on all those carriers. So you have at your disposal T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, excuse me, and what was the other one? I can't remember.
Sprint,
US Cellular.
U.S. Cellular.
Sprint got bought by T-Mobile.
Yeah. US Cellular. Those are the four main ones in the United. And this is only US and I believe Canada, but don't quote me on this. Like I said, this is all brand new. I think it's more domestic United States. What my model will do, I can speak on the other models. I got the entry level one here. It will go out and query the tower and saying, what's your signal strength, what's your bandwidth, yada, yada, yada. And it will go to the other ones and saying, okay, T-Mobile it is. And it'll register on that tower. And on the interface, it's only going to say roam link. I'm not going to have any clue what I'm using. Now, if I was able to manage this myself, I would. If I call up one of the propeller head people in their tech support, they will be able to band steer this in case I have problems where, yes, it may be the strongest signal, but it has the lowest bandwidth, I could call them up during business hours and tell them, yeah, this is not working for me. And they're going to say, well, there is an AT&T tower we can attach to. We can try that one. And
So
they
what
can,
you're saying is, if you're managing it yourself, you have to pay for individual cell services to
no,
connect this thing to.
no, and it's part of the $100. And I'll let the cat out of the bag. It's $100. Yes,
That's
it's
what I was
expensive.
trying to get to.
It's This is how I talk myself into it. And like I said, I'm a computer nerd, network nerd. I rationalized myself in this because I'm paying $85 a month for AT&T for 75 megabit or megabytes for the phone and 50 for the hotspot. And it doesn't always work, which I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah.
And so the way I rationalize it, okay, I have 4 incumbent carriers. I'm paying $100 a month. Well, I'm going to start paying next month because this was, well, it already took my money, so I'll pay for the next month rather. And because I thought it was part of the purchase price, but I found out that because I do the managed one, they discounted the price of the equipment. So if I use it for 12 months, it's mine. They'll unlock it, carrier unlock it, and I can use it wherever I want if I want to leave. Now, the way I rationalize this is 4 carriers. Okay, if I wanted to get hotspot plans for all 4 of those carriers, I would have to buy the equipment, pay for the service. If you added up all of that, you're going to be spending more than $100. And I have 100 gigabytes. And in my experience, the most I've ever used was almost 50. And that was when I was in the hotel room when I went down to visit Moss the one year. The hotel during the day was fine, but when everybody came back from visiting the Smoky Mountains and whatever else, it sucked. So I used the hotspot on my phone. And well, I didn't realize this, but streaming the Spectrum app, and I was using, it's the one from Discovery Plus. One thing I didn't realize this many years ago is if you can stream 4K, it's going to stream 4K. If you've got the bandwidth for 1080p, it's going to stream. And I'm like binge watching something. I was watching Dirty Jobs, Macro's Dirty Jobs, or how things are made, or whatever I was watching. I watched that for the time that when I was visiting Moss, when I would come back.
And hit your data limit in 10 minutes or less.
It said, you've used 75% of your data on the second day. I'm like, you've used 75% of your data allowance. I'm like, what? I call them up and they're like, oh yeah, of our app. I didn't call the carrier, but I called the other ones. And I'm like, you should add that as an option to your software because I've used 50 gigs in 2 days.
Well, it's not our problem, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah. So I know that now. So now I pretty much limit myself to 1 or 2 hours of television if I'm streaming the Spectrum app. And the only thing I'm paying for now is Spectrum and YouTube Premium. I cut off my Hulu and everything else.
You would probably never hear from me again if I ever did that.
So, but if you want, I can come back on here too for another innards later this fall to talk more about it. But I also will be talking more about it on Distro Hoppers Digest in my foibles.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know more. I wish it was a little bit more because I can get 10 gig off my phone, which is usually enough to, upload the show after I do the editing and stuff. I'd like something a bit more robust. But to get started, day one, what are we looking at pricing?
Okay, let me go into my checkbook app here.
Oh, while you're in there.
In my electronic checkbook app thing here, they just enabled the feature of being able to use, I can't remember the name of the company, but I can actually get it to automatically update my account, and I'm not sure I want to trust that. But that's a whole nother tangent. um, I'm not sure if because this is I have to enter everything myself. I'm not sure about letting them do it. I know Moss. I'm scrolling. I've got a lot of transactions. I spend a lot of money on crap. I'm scrolling.
Scrolling,
There.
scrolling.
Okay.
My man's got so much money he doesn't know what he spends it on.
Yeah, I'm single and I don't date, so yeah, that's a dangerous combination. And
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it's. I have self restraint. I've got 8-year-old laptops, so give me some bit of a break. I could.
Oh, you're fine.
I could have a lot. I'm just teasing you, but I'm just saying I could have a lot more. I found it. Okay. It was tax shipping. I think it was discounted shipping or free shipping. I'm not looking at the receipt. Actually, I could probably go into my email. It was $221. Now let me go into updates. I use Gmail for receipts and stuff like that because I'm still moving myself off. Well, I figured they already know anyways. Yep. I mean, with all the metrics and everything that they're selling. I mean, even the BMV is selling my information. I mean, come on. Even Ohio's doing it.
That's because
okay, let me see if this is this my receipt? But it's $221. The service is $100 for 50 gigabytes, and it's 4G on this plan. And the rationale for this, because I binge watched all these videos for like 9 hours the one day, is the rationale is since everything is using 5G and all the phones are going to 5G, the 4G is a lot less cluttered.
I'm not sure I buy that logic because there's still a lot of cheap phones that people are trying to $60 phones that people are trying to get every last drop of use out of, you know.
Well, I remember back in the day when 4G got popular.
Yeah.
There were a lot of, if I was in like a busy place, a lot of times where it was faster to drop down to the old 3G network.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's like I said, I'll know more once I start using it, but that's the logic behind it. And in my experience, like I said, I don't know if it's my Pixel that's glitching, my 6 Pro, or if it's an AT&T tower issue. But mine seems to do much better on 4G than it does on the 5G. There's been a few times where I've gotten a 5G Plus or whatever AT&T is calling it, where it was good. I mean, there was one time where I downloaded like 1.5 gigs of Aquamarine, what's it, the distro I'm reviewing for distro hoppers. It's Fedora based. And it, like, I went to set it up to download, and then I got out of the truck, walked into the building to use the men's room, come back, and it was already done. And I'm like, what? I did a speed test. I was getting 150 megabits. But there's times where I've parked where I felt like I'm back in my bedroom in the 1990s on an ISDN line. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing. There's a lot of unknown stuff that I'm having to parse out. And like I said on our meeting yesterday, trying to find somebody that knows something when you call into tech support for AT&T. I mean, you just have to throw your hands up.
That's any L1 tech support.
Yeah.
Any help desk.
And so I don't know if my problems are attributed to a glitch in my Pixel, if it's the Exynos modem that's in the Pixel, if it's a tower issue at the certain places I've parked at. So I don't know, but this is no contract. The only thing you would technically be out is the money you paid. So it would be, if it doesn't work, it'd be a lesson learned. Now, I said there's another one. I don't have it up here in front of me. I'm just going to do it by memory. The next ones are more like the other one is 5G. And then it has Wi-Fi 6. Like this has Wi-Fi 5, which doesn't bother me at all because that has Wi-Fi 5, my APACLR. So I don't really care about that. But yeah, if you get the 5G, you might as well have Wi-Fi 6 because you might be hindering yourself. And then there's some other bells and whistles with the medium grade one. And then when you get into the upper grade one, which basically is like a semester of college you'd be paying for, depending on your university, it has even more features that you would have to really need. You would have to know. I think that's pretty much the one that the retired IT director would be using because he likes using stuff like that. For the rest of us, I would say the medium one or this one. And it's made by a company called PepLink. And they I did all my homework on this to inquire about everything, and they were very transparent and very forthcoming with it. And they pretty much have an agreement with the company that makes these so that they have access to them directly from the warehouse in Michigan.
That's cool. All right, let me put a pin in this here. Let's put this into the next innards after you've had a couple of weeks to be able to use this device and get a feel for it and have more to bring to the show with it. But this is running long, and we should probably
or whenever he can get back off the road again and join us.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on. Vibrations from the ether. Now, do you want to go for this, Moss?
Yeah. We received 2 very short but pleasant emails from Luna Yarnberg about her hearing her first and then second episodes of mintCast. She did say that she was vacationing in the UK and was going back to Sweden, where she lives. I'm telling her, keep listening, Luna. We're just getting good.
Okay, and then moving on to check this out. I don't know if the link is broken in the actual show notes, but it doesn't look like it made it onto here, onto my copy and paste version. Now, it's the evolution of Linux Mint, and Londoner provided this. Check this out. This is a 5-minute video on YouTube showing the evolving desktops of Linux Mint from 1.0 ADA to the current 22 Wilma. So if you guys want to check that out, it is in the show notes, or you can go to YouTube and search for Evolution of Linux Mint.
I just fixed the link.
Thank you, sir. Now, in moving on to housekeeping and announcements, thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something that you'd like to hear about, tell us. Send us an email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintCast subreddit. Chat with us on Telegram and Discord. Or post directly at https://mintcast.org. Next episode, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, September 1st, 2024. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next roundtable live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, August 24th. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next roundtable live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, September 7th. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. Moving on to the wrap-up. I've been your host, Joe, And if you like the sound of my voice, I'm on a couple other podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is at tllts.org. I'm also on the Linux Lugcast, which you can get at linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Moss?
You can hear me every week on Full Circle Weekly News. You can email me, moss@bodielinux.com. And my Mastodon is at Zyvala at HostTux Social. And you occasionally catch me on HPR. Bill?
Well, you can email me. I'm Bill at mintcast.org. I'm Bill_H on Discord. At WCHauser3 at fostodon.org on that there Mastodon. Also, check out my other two shows, Linux OTC and Three Fat Truckers. Links to both of those in the show notes.
Majid couldn't be with us today, but you can catch him at Dr. Majid at mintcast.org, at atypical_doctor at mastodon.social, Atypical Doctor on Instagram and Threads, and the Atypical Doctor podcast on Spotify, and also Linux OTC. Eric also could not be here with us today, but you can hear and see him on the Distro Hoppers Digest and Linux OTC podcast, as well as the Linux Saloon and Linux Lugcast streams. And he can be reached by email at eric@mintcast.org. Dale?
And I can be emailed at Dale_CDL at pm.me. And my socials are the Dale_CDL on Discord and Telegram. And I'm also considering creating a Mastodon account as soon as I figure out which server I want to get onto. And you can hear me with Eric at Distro Hoppers Digest.
Okay, before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. Bill for most everything that we do and for the audio editing. Archive.org for hosting our audio files. Hobstar for our logo. InitRD for the animated Discord logo. Londoner for our time syncs and various other contributions. Once again, Bill for hosting the server, which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our show notes and raw audio. The Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about.
Thanks,
Clem.
Thanks, Clem.
Thanks,
And
Clem.
Co.
And wrap.
Awesome.
Rah, rah, rah. That's the spirit.
Oh, yeah.
Oof, just shy of 3 hours.